and helping me out even when I was just starting out. And that's what it is. That's what we've done in the United States with building these parallel institutions, and I see it happening in the UK, and I think this is absolutely the way forward.
Yeah, definitely. So CPAC is going to be live streamed this afternoon. We'll put out a message as to where you can find it if you want to watch this on the panel. Jack's speaking as well before that down there. It's already ongoing, and it's going to be going on for a couple of days. So keep your eyes peeled. Meanwhile, coming up, Super Chat from Seaside Babe. Fresh eyes always see a different story. True. And another one from Bright Spark. Thank you for that. Any more? That'll do. Laila Cunningham coming up at 10 o'clock. She's next door in the UK Live studio. She'll, I'm sure, have plenty to say about the protection of MPs and we didn't actually get around to asking you about Anne Widdecombe, but we'll maybe do that this afternoon.
And by the way, my condolences.
Yeah, I know.
This is a horrific act, and if it turns out that this was political violence, then, which it seems to be shaping up to be, that what it means is that the assassination culture of left-wing extremists has come from the United States to the UK. Yeah, which is also terrifying as well. We'll see you tomorrow morning, meanwhile, at 7 a.m. Have a good day, and Laila Cunningham coming next. Could have done another, yeah. There. Good morning, welcome to UK Live. Look, what am I doing here? Blimey, this is absolutely ludicrous, isn't it? It's been a really busy day. Mike is just finishing up before he heads off to CPAC. And shall I send to myself? And Laila has had a meeting, so she is just coming in now. So she's running down the corridor. We've got everything ready. We've got her coffee and her water and bits and pieces. So good morning, how are you all doing? I thought that was a fantastic show with Mike. What a star William Yarwood is. He's absolutely hilarious. I love hearing about his dates, don't you? We want to know how that goes. And Neil Oliver. Great to see Neil Oliver. Oh, Layla's just coming in now. Hello, Laila.
Hello, how are you?
All right, fine, in you go. So we're just going to can you mic Laila up, please, Scarlett?
Yeah.
I know it is chilly. We'll turn that off. And then we can get rid of me as soon as possible.
Sure but see you.
No, they don't. But we're just saying it was such a great show this morning. Neil Oliver, love what he's got to say. And just Mike's show is going from strength to strength. So he's going to be appearing at CPAC today and tomorrow. I think it's around on Saturday. So anyone who hasn't got tickets, I'd recommend going along. I'm going to the Posh Do on Friday night. So I've just bought some new patent leather shoes.
Oh, nice.
Yes, because I've lost my old ones. So I think Mike's coming in now. So
He won't be a second. Go Pooch, what a team player. Well, one does what one has to. I wish the teams playing yesterday did a bit of a better job. It was terrible. Right, Laila, are you ready to rock and roll?
Ready to rock and roll.
And we've got a different camera angle, as you might notice. Laila likes camera position too. Luke, there we go. Are we there? Can we see you?
Yeah,
that's good. We're going to straighten you
up.
up.
Hair.
Yeah, okay. And let's straighten you up. This is all live, isn't it? Look at this. Look at that.
Hello, everyone.
Did you manage
Camera bloopers.
Yeah, did you manage to get put some makeup on this morning? You're looking very...
Have I?
No, you're looking very...
Unmakeupped?
No, very make-upped and official.
Oh, well, there you go.
So
I was just I was on Talk TV actually before.
Oh, were you?
Yep.
How's that going? What are you talking about?
I didn't... What I really wanted to talk about was my anger at the football, but I didn't.
Okay. Where did you watch it?
At home. I needed to focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't... Yeah. I was...
Do you know, it was so nerve-wracking. That second
After
hydration
we scored,
break.
I was more nervous, actually.
Yeah, I was. That second hydration break. Here comes Mike. Fantastic.
Hello,
Let's
Mike.
swap him over. In we go, Mike. You can come around here. That second hydration break, I had to go out and play with the dogs because it was so nerve-wracking. Anyway, Mike, certainly same thing. It was just... There you go, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, I was just talking to Jack Posobiec, who's here for CPAC, and
Hello.
he's coming
hi.
to say hello.
Hi.
Hi, Jack. How are you?
Very well. There you go, Mike. Sorry. Just
Not at all. Morning.
Oh, Mike, good morning. Is it a good morning? I wish we won last night.
Yeah, I know. But in fact, I was never one of those who thought that, you know, the funny thing with England playing the way that they do is that you don't expect them really to do very much. And then they kind of lull you into this false sense of hope because then you go, actually, they're quite good this time. And maybe this time they'll do it. But, you know, they just kind of folded. The last half an hour, they just folded.
Not even. Like, I feel like we came out guns blazing.
Yeah.
And you're like, damn, what good.
Yeah.
You know? And then you just don't retreat when you've got Messi. And then we just play defence.
Yeah, I know.
We only had 12% possession after the first goal.
I know.
You're like, what are we doing?
I know.
Also, like, I just feel like that substitution, you've got like a team of defenders, basically, and we get 2 goals in. What?
And that was fortunate, actually, because there were two posts were hit, weren't they? It could have been worse.
Oh, no. Jordan Pickford was good.
He was.
He was good.
But you can't rely on him for everything.
No. But I must say, that first Argentina goal was pretty epic. I'm going to give it to them.
But again, there wasn't anybody covering him. You know, they were all so deep into the penalty area.
And the second one, no one was covering him.
Well, Messi literally had about half a mile between him and the penalty area, and he could have just done anything he wanted.
We should have attacked.
Yeah.
You know, we needed to be 2-1, 2-0, and that's what they do. The Argentina. Oh, I was just so upset. I was so upset because I don't think, and perhaps the viewers will agree with me, I don't think they were. I wouldn't be upset if I was like, they're such a great team, there was no chance.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We could have.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We could have won. Yeah. And seeing like Jude cry at the end, it was just heartbreaking. And do you think Harry Kane's got one more World Cup in him?
Probably.
He's 32. I hope so.
Probably. I think so, yeah. He's pretty fit and he lives a pretty clean life, I think. So
he does, yeah. They're all good lads, you know?
Yeah, there's no more of the kind of Wayne Rooney, let's all go out to a nightclub.
And when that Argentinian scored, the expression on his face was so annoying.
Yeah.
What was that? What was he doing?
Yeah.
What, you mean the equaliser?
What was he doing with his ears, whatever? That's so annoying.
Because it's the sound.
Listen to the crowd.
It's the listen to the crowd thing.
Shut up, I can't hear you now.
Yeah.
So irritating.
Yeah. Well, they are the Argies. You know, they cheat. They do anything to win. That's the trouble with Britain, is we don't do anything to win. We just let everybody else beat us.
Yesterday,
in every way, shape, and form.
The vice president of Argentina called us usurping pirates. So I tweeted, "Cry harder, the Falklands are still ours." And man, did the Argentinians come for me.
Did they?
Oh, God. It got like 500,000 views and they were like aggressive.
And were they aggressive here or were they aggressive?
They were aggressive online.
Yeah, but were they Argentinians in Britain, though? Or do
I
you
don't
not
know that many, actually.
No.
Do you?
I mean, there's probably loads of them here because there's loads of everybody else here.
I like that comment we just had. We lost the match but won the war. Hell yeah.
Yeah, a while ago, though.
Would you rather, Falklands or a World Cup?
Yeah.
Both. Can we have both? Is it possible? Do we have to always pick?
Yeah, well,
I mean, I'm hoping.
somebody said to me today on a message that we basically defended like the border force does.
Right.
Useless.
Initially, I was like, damn, their defense was tight initially,
Yeah.
and I knew we'd have to run it off. And why would you take Morgan off?
I know. It doesn't make any
What?
sense.
Like,
Well, here's my theory, right? The German was a plant. The Germans planted him, and they made us get all the way to the point of thinking this could actually be happening, and then you pull the plug.
I mean, I think it would have been
warfare.
a tough final against Spain, and I think Argentina's got what it's coming for against Spain.
I think Spain will beat them.
Yeah, I think so too. But you never know. They play dirty, Argentinians.
They do. So they say anything they know how to do.
Yeah, I mean that was an aggressive. I mean,
They've always been like that.
yeah. South America. I mean, Mexico was also pretty bad.
Yeah, but do you remember the whole Beckham thing when he got sent off?
Yeah.
You know, back in '98.
Yeah, I mean, and Messi's kind of used to having his calls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he was
gets
a bit
what he
upset
wants,
initially that he didn't get it.
which was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that tackle after our first goal was insane. I'm just, I'm upset.
I can tell. Never seen you so upset.
Well, you know.
Do you know how to pronounce Myron's second name on the screen there? Because I can't do it.
Yeah, Sentil Nathan.
Sentil Nathan.
Yeah,
Or Nathan.
Sentil Nathan is what I say, and he hasn't
Yeah.
complained.
You grab me.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got to get down to
Yeah.
CPAC. Are you
Let's
going
go.
to CPAC later?
I'm going tomorrow.
Okay. For dinner?
Nigel's speaking today, I think.
I think he is. Yeah. Yeah.
Nigel.
Hello, Myron.
Hi, Laila.
How are you?
Yeah, doing good, doing good.
I feel like perhaps can you just remind us how to pronounce your name, please?
It's Myron Sentil Nathan.
Yeah, I thought it was Nathan.
But if you're from the Indian subcontinent, you would do what Mike Graham just did, which is Sentil Nathan, if you want to be really kind of like...
I see. Because Nathan's
authentic.
quite a British pronunciation, no?
Yeah, one person thought it sounded like a Jewish name, because Myron Nathan is what they sometimes call me. They miss out the
Right.
Sentil bit, so yeah.
Sentil Nathan, that's cool. So how are you today? How do you feel about
I'm
after the
doing
match?
good. Yeah, I'm doing good. I think I was just listening. Look, it was disappointing after they sat on the goal. They did a kind of Muhammad Ali rumble in the jungle sort of tactic, which is just put your defenses up and take the beating. But you can only do it for so long with so many amazing attacking players from Argentina. So I have no idea why they defended so deep for so long. What attack is the best form of defense? I don't understand why they didn't go and step out. They could clearly see the wall was going to buckle at some point. So yeah, highly disappointing.
Highly. But anyway, we're here to talk about free speech and crime. One of my favourite topics, actually one of my favourite battles, is the tyranny of the state. And I feel that, you know, we do have an ever-encroaching state into our lives. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think we're living in a peacetime sort of dividend. And so what happens during that time is a society effectively eats itself. And so you get kind of woke progressive ideology sort of is the kind of symptom of that. And so what's happening at the moment is the state have been captured by this ideology, and it's become increasingly authoritarian. At the same time, across the pond, we've got Trump, who's won, and so that kind of Trumpian Republican vibe is soaring. So the public, with the liberalisation of X especially, is wanting to speak their mind more, wanting to actually, you know, be honest about things that we haven't been honest about, like what is a woman, for example. And at the same time, you've got an authoritarian state which is trying to clamp down. And so what we're seeing is the tension building and building and building more and more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, I do feel that perhaps, you know, obviously it's a form of control. But at what point, I mean, you saw that they want to clamp down on social media during general elections, right? Which is, I say, when it's most important. How much are we going to take of it, you know?
I think we're
And
coming through a
how
rupture.
can you fight back?
Well, I think X is the kind of last man standing in the major way, and we have to sort of give credit to Elon Musk. I mean, look at the rape gang situation. I don't think we'd have an inquiry if it wasn't for X being owned by Elon Musk. So it is the kind of last stand. So as long as X is functioning, I think we're okay. I'm worried about the YouTube algorithms being changed. I think a lot of people watch this show and Mike Graham because they're BBC refugees, and so I think them trying to promote the BBC, ITV, and Channel 4 is a horrendous thing, and even the US Congress has even spoken out against that as being against sort of free speech. But that's what I mean. There is a tension going on. The state is losing control of the narrative. Reality is radicalizing people, and the state has no solutions in terms of policy and rectifying situations. So what do you do in that? You gain control of the narrative. You clamp down on free speech. That's the only thing left in your sort of your cards that you can play, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel it as a citizen? Do you feel scared to post certain things? Are you like, I want to say this, perhaps I won't? Do you know friends that do? Because
Definitely. I mean, look, the Southport situation, the Lucy Connolly case, and all of those. It does make you think twice. Is this okay? Is this classed as hate speech if I just use slightly pugnacious language? You start to look around and you think, where is the Overton window? Oh, this person said it, so then it's okay for me to say it. All of these kind of, and that's why I look at someone like Nigel in particular. I think, do you know what? He is someone who is in charge in many ways of holding the Overton window, if not pushing it, nudging it forward. And so he kind of takes the brunt of the situation, speaking out in the Southport, even in the Anne Whitcomb case and so on. But we look to figures like Nigel, we look to other journalists as well. I would look at Alison Pearson as a great example as well, of people who kind of are holding the line on X and really fighting for the space for people like me and other people to kind of air our views as well.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. See, I feel that the government views free speech as protecting opinions that everyone agrees on. But I think free speech is about protecting the views of people you would rather not hear. It's about protecting the views of everyone, and particularly those that you don't agree with. Because only by having my argument tested can I prove it. It's almost a show not tell. And we have a government that doesn't believe in scrutiny, and if you do scrutinize it or if you do criticize it, they want to shut it down.
Yeah, look, what is speech? What is words? Words are basically a consolidation and manifestation of what is reality and what is subliminal, what you can't see. Well, as soon as you put it into words, it becomes real, it becomes tangible. And so when you try and control the narrative and suppress words and speech, your ability to actually crystallize reality in a tangible way gets thwarted. And that's why free speech is not just the ability to speak, it's the ability to think, it's the ability to actually consolidate reality. It's much more than just being able to speak freely. And that's where the whole kind of Orwellian type situation comes in, where if your speech is curtailed, reality is curtailed. If reality is curtailed, then things don't change. And so it's really incumbent upon all of us to be as courageous as possible during this time. Look, and what's happening at the moment is the ordinary civilian is losing trust in the state narrative more and more. And that happened massively during COVID.
And that's driving the state crazy.
Yeah.
The state can't handle it. And
exactly.
Let me ask, we'll end on this. It's super interesting. Thank you so much for coming on. And your posts are excellent on X. Can words constitute harm if they do not instigate violence?
No, not at all. I think at the end of the day, words are words. And if we have things like silence is violence, and this is a perversion of reality. It's a perversion of truth. Words are words, and that's what it is. And if there's no incitement to violence, and almost anything goes, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you're of an ethnic minority, as am I. And listen, I've had a lot of racist stuff thrown at me. I don't want to shut them down.
No. No, look, when I take on Restore
Come at
Britain
me with all you've got.
Yeah, I take on Restore Britain a lot sometimes, and there's a lot of, like, let's say, strong ethno-nationalist movement individuals who orbit the party. And I get tons of abuse that goes on.
So do I. Are you British to them? No.
No. I don't recognise British as a civic identity. So therefore, but look, I'm willing to take that. That's fine. No problem. I'll keep going with that. We've all got to have thick skins in this game, especially in the climate that we're in. And look, I'm willing to take that on board if it means that we get a rape gang inquiry, right? Or if it means someone who's getting a white person who's getting beaten up in a street by a gang, it gets justice. You know, whatever it is, it's a price worth paying, and I think most people on the right would agree with that.
100%. And it's funny, isn't it, that it's the right now that believe in free speech. You know, the left tend to call themselves progressive. I don't see anything progressive about them right now. They're not trying to progress society. They're almost trying to stunt it.
No,
because progression is the exchange of ideas. It's the exchange of arguments. It's battling it out, and they don't accept battling out. You know, for me, progression is arguing on all levels and reaching a conclusion, and everyone can reach their own conclusion.
The left are very good at manipulating language, and so when they come up with words like progressive, I mean, even like when we look at things like growth, you know, all of these words don't mean anything. Words are what the left are very good at. They're very good at twisting the meaning of words and giving whole new context to words to kind of fuel their agenda. So for progressiveness for them just means more authoritarian. That's really what it means.
Exactly that. That's how I view progressiveness. Thank you very much, Myron. Sentinel Nathan. Sentinel Nathan. There you go. I got it. Where in Southeast Asia is that from?
It's Sri Lankan Tamil.
Oh, Sri Lankan Tamil. Okay. Hopefully we'll have you again. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. Cheers.
And we have Jack from CPAC. Hello, Jack. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored at the welcome, but. You know, this is my first time to London. I think in I think about 5 years or so, and my goodness, how much the city has changed.
Yeah.
I can't get over it, and I'm here with family. We've got our 2 little boys with us, me and my wife, and we're going to all these. You know, I'm looking for children's type things to do, and we don't see any British children.
Yeah.
We go around and what is this? Now we have fortunately we made it out to Bath yesterday and then came back, gorgeous.
Yeah.
And was doing quite better out there in terms of that. But here in London, the character of this city has changed so much in 5 years that my eyes were just wide
We have had
open.
huge demographic change, and that is mainly because London has operated as, and you know it well in the US, as a sanctuary city.
Yes.
For refugees. You know, we've got 32 boroughs, I guess you call it districts in America.
Some cities we say, in New York we call it boroughs.
Oh, you do, yeah.
Yeah. And in New York we have the same situation.
Right, and 15 of them act as a sanctuary borough, where people who arrive on our shores illegally, once they claim asylum, once that asylum is deemed accepted, they become refugees. And they go to the top of the housing list in London in some places. And our veterans, who are deemed single white men, are at the bottom of it, and they're homeless. And as a result, I mean, it's different to the London I grew up in. And listen, my parents came from Egypt in the 60s. But in those days, immigration was very low. And as you know, when immigration is in small numbers, whether you like it or not, and they wanted to, but you have to integrate and assimilate. But when it's in such massive numbers and all put into one area, number one, they become a voting bloc.
Yes.
And they don't vote for Britain. They don't vote for what's best for the country. They vote on sectarian or religious or ethnic lines. And it does change the demographic in the area. And you have that a lot. I mean, I lived in LA for a while, and you do have areas that don't really that don't speak English.
Right. No, and there's LA. I don't even know if you're in America anymore when you go.
My husband's American, so we go.
So there you go, and it's gotten to a situation where I've heard folks here refer to it as the bars wave, and I said, my gosh, that's such a good term. We have to use that for the Biden wave back home, because it's exactly what we are dealing with. And then people want to turn around and say, oh, we have a housing crisis, oh, we have an energy crisis, we have this crisis and that crisis. And I say, there's kind of a fix everything button, And actually, if we don't talk about the mass importation of millions upon millions of people through a very short period of time, then it's almost, and they want to treat these things as if they're operating in a vacuum. As if
there's
education, right? It's all downstream. It's all downstream. But if you bring it up, oh, you're racist, you're xenophobe, etc. Every, the labels start coming out, the throwing keeps coming out. And I love what you were saying in the previous segment, by the way, about real progression and progressivism versus censorship. And I actually had this. I was kind of arguing with this journalist in the U.S. It was off the record kind of thing, but so I won't say the name, but. It was because they were talking about Elon Musk's X platform. They said, well, if you get rid of your misinformation policies, how are you going to combat misinformation? And I said, the same way that people always combat misinformation, argument.
Yeah, exactly.
They seem to think that that's not an option.
No.
And they'll say, well, you're just going to have to agree with whatever Elon does. No, we had a huge argument with Elon over the level of H-1B visas.
Right.
This was on Christmas Day in 2024, referred to it as the Christmas War.
Yeah.
And
who's we? Do you work for? If you just remind us.
So I'm, of course, and I'm the senior editor of Human Events, and I'm a contributor with Turning Point USA.
Okay.
And so there are a number of people.
We love Charlie Kirk.
Thank you very much. And that's something that it's well. Let me finish this point and then get to that,
of course.
Because that lines up. Is that so? We had it out. We had it out, even if it was Elon and other Silicon Valley types who wanted more of this, the white collar worker visas kind of thing. The point is that. Well, you're still divesting white-collar workers in the United States. You're divesting middle-class children, college graduates.
You're undercutting them.
You're totally undercutting them. And the idea, we don't have enough, etc. No.
I agree.
No, it's because you keep importing people who are willing to work for slave labor. And by the way, I had people from Silicon Valley calling me, telling me, they said, Jack, you have it exactly right. That's exactly
100%.
What's going on. And there's these coding jobs that, sort of the chat GPTs and they just can't quite do it yet, where you just have to sit there and, kind of bang it out for hours on end. And that's what these workers are coming to do. And so rather than, say, oh, we're going to be censored, and to his credit, Elon didn't, push for censorship either.
No.
We just argued. We just had a good old-fashioned argument about it.
And so what happened here is probably similar. And I believe in a free market, right? So what since wages have been stagnant here since, I guess, 1997, but more acutely since 2008, because we've had governments that haven't invested in skills or technology and have relied on foreign cheap labor, right? And so we've imported the Boris wave, millions of foreign cheap labor, and because British people wouldn't take on jobs, they say, for the salaries that were present there. But for me, that is a market problem, right? So you don't distort the market by importing foreign cheap laborers.
Correct.
You force the companies and the employers to raise their wages so they're acceptable to British people. But instead, we've imported foreign cheap labor that have suppressed wages, have undercut the working class, have undercut not even the way, all the way up to like Oxford graduates.
And by the way, these used to be left-wing arguments.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. And by the way, this happened with Tony Blair. So he had 50,000 net migration when he came in. It went up to 250, and through having no transitional controls for immigration from the EU, we had a lot of people that came from countries like Poland that accepted jobs at a lower wage, and they undercut the working class, the very communities that they were meant to represent. They undercut them, and then they had the audacity to fight to remain in the EU and call those that voted for Brexit as racist and bigots and whatever. And I think you're seeing the same there.
And you're seeing a lot of those, by the way, you're seeing a lot of those immigrants now starting to leave.
Right. Exactly that. And they've left. And the problem is we haven't believed, and the left always say, the NHS won't work, our public services won't work. And I think you have the same argument in the US. Who's going to do this if you don't import the immigrants?
Every time.
You know what I mean? Yet we have an ever-growing welfare state because it's a vicious cycle, right?
You can't have open borders and a welfare state.
Milton Friedman said that, right?
It's very simple.
You just can't have
it. It's
it.
very simple.
You just
it doesn't work. But I wanted to get back to the censorship to the point you mentioned about Charlie. And so I've just come from the courtroom where they've been having this. It's the first public hearing with Charlie's accused assassin, and so I've spent an entire week there.
Is he the one that did it? Do you think he is?
I think all the evidence points to it.
Okay.
They have DNA, they have cell phone, they have his car, they have his gun, they have his fingerprints. I mean, what more do you need at this point? They have videotape after videotape of him in the stairwell climbing. And by the way, all of it should be released. A lot of it has been released, but I do want all of it, and I believe in a fair trial. Because again, I believe in the system. Charlie believed in the system.
Yeah.
But what I want, and they have texts, and probably the biggest thing actually I think that came out newsworthy is that his own boyfriend is testifying against him.
Right.
And so there's a videotape confession, or I should say a testimony, that came out in this hearing, but when it goes to an actual trial, they'll have to produce the person in, you have right to face your accuser, so they'll have to produce him in court. And his own parents turned him in, by the way.
Wow.
And his
that's true,
parents
exactly.
are sitting there in the courtroom. It's a small courtroom. It's about 6 rows of
I remember
the gallery.
that. It's admirable of the father.
It's stunningly admirable.
Yeah.
I don't know if as a father, I don't know if I could do that. Just speaking plainly, I don't know if I could do that.
It is a real philosophical question. You almost feel perhaps it's better for him to be in prison than to do it again and be killed.
Well, even then, his father knew that this would most likely be a death penalty case.
Yeah. Oh,
and
right.
So, and I just say that, and it's something that it is a real moral philosophical question, but it is something that I think as a dad, you don't pick up that phone to make that call unless you are adamantly sure about what you're making the call
And
about.
you make a point, because here he'd get like 20 years.
Yeah.
In America.
Oh, and this
in
is
America,
this
it's a
is,
death sentence,
and this
right?
This is Utah too.
Right.
This is not some
they don't mess about.
This is out west where they do still impose that. In fact, in Utah, on the books, they still have firing squad as an option.
Is that how it's administered?
It is one of the options. I believe the last one was in 2010, so not that long ago, relatively speaking.
Well.
But
does every murder case end up in a death penalty in Utah?
No, not at all. It's quite rare.
It's quite rare,
But
right.
it has to be an egregious offense, what they call, I believe it's aggravated murder, and so they have these enhancements that could potentially trigger it.
Right.
One of which is if it was a political target, actually, which obviously in this case it was.
Okay.
Another one of which is if there was a reckless disregard for the lives of others, which
Of course, we all saw it,
which we can see in this case, that he's shooting into a crowd of people, and in fact, one of the things that investigators are pointing out was that the tent that Charlie was sitting at, it's sort of opaque. You couldn't really see behind so he had no idea if people were behind there.
Right.
So that, of course,
Yes.
is the recklessness, right? It
I
proves
see.
recklessness, and then of course the presence of minors.
Right.
And they played videos from the crowd. It was, they blurred out the faces, but you could see a mother who had brought her 2 beautiful little kids to just see Charlie speak, and it was a nice little video, but it was so horrible to watch, knowing what those children would have to go through in just a few moments thereafter. And
what does that teach the children as well, right? I mean, going forward.
Well, I hope it teaches them, and this is what I hope it teaches them, is because I think this all starts with censorship.
Oh, yes.
I think it all starts with the idea.
The intolerant left.
It's the idea, and you mentioned progressivism, because they're not progressive; they're repressive.
Yeah.
It is repressive tolerance.
Yeah.
And this idea that they say, I will not grant you your rights.
No.
And you do not have a right to speak. And since you do not have a right to speak, and they'll give you their litany of why you don't have a right to speak, because you're a white Christian male who's in a committed heterosexual relationship, or whatever it is. You backed the wrong candidate. Actually, I had someone tell me recently that I shouldn't be allowed to vote because I voted for Donald Trump. I said, well, isn't that the whole point of voting is that you're allowed to vote who you want to?
Well, democracy.
Right,
Do
that's
they
the
believe
whole,
in democracy?
Well, obviously not.
No.
And of course that question sort of set up, and I said that to him, so do you believe people should have the right to vote who they vote for? And he just sort of, well, not for him. So you don't believe the right to vote. Okay, got it, thank you. And point being though is, it starts with this idea, which is a level of hubris, I think, that you have a right to tell people what they can and can't say, right? And I would take inciting violence off of that, but Charlie never incited violence.
No.
Charlie would come to college campuses and he would bring 2 microphones. This is key.
I know.
2 microphones. He wasn't just out there, delivering sermons or whatever. And he could. He really could. We all know that he could. But he would bring a second microphone. Yes. And the rule, and we keep with this rule at Turning Point, was that if you disagree, front of the line. That is the fast cue. That is, you are right to the front.
I love that.
Tell us what your disagreement is, and let's have it out. No, of course, he knew that's what went viral. But the idea was, we're here in the modern public square, a college campus, to hash out whatever the great idea is. And sometimes you'd have some silly internet humor type people would come up, and Charlie would roll with the punches and go along with it, banter, of course. But for a lot of the times, he would realize that so many of the people that were coming up to him, and I think it was, if you watch the progression of these campus debates that Charlie would do, these events, that he would start to actually kind of push aside or sort of go around the political argument and say, why is this the issue you care about so much?
Yes.
And he would try to meet the person where they were. And it's something I've reflected on since losing him, that this is the importance of meeting in reality, is to get away from the screens and to meet each other as human beings.
Yes.
And to say, maybe you had something that went wrong in your childhood. Maybe you had a bad relationship with your parents. Maybe you had some terrible trauma that inflicted upon you, something happened. Whatever it is. Or maybe you just have misinformation on something. And he would talk to the person as an individual, and he would unpack that. And he would get away from the politics, but he would just try to say, here's a different way of looking at that situation. Maybe it's not that, for example, you mentioned the refugees and the migrants. Maybe it's not that we hate the migrants. Maybe it's just that we really love our own families, really love our own communities and our own neighborhoods, and we don't want to lose them.
So you hit the nail on the head. Number one, I don't think we asked the question why enough, right? Which he did very well.
Which he did.
Yeah, which is very important, I think. We just go into combat.
Right.
Right, and I think
which is human, it's a very human response.
And it takes a big man to kind of ask why, with an open mind to perhaps being convinced.
Right.
And I don't think that happens, but we have it in England here. So I'm of Muslim background, and I do recognise that some communities have almost been overrun by a Muslim culture. Some areas in the UK, and people who call it out are called Islamophobic. And I'm like, there is nothing racist about trying to protect your way of life. It is normal. It is patriotic. So when British people say enough, I don't want people coming into this country and changing the area I grew up in. I want it to remain a British city, a British town with British values. I see that as the ultimate patriotic sentiment. You're trying to protect your way of life. It's normal.
It's the most normal thing in the world.
It's the most normal thing in the world, yet you're not allowed to do it. And
this is what creates that snapback response from so many people.
And this is what creates so much division, because they're pitting British people who want to maintain their way of life against newcomers who come to the country. And of course, and I don't want to say that we're not anti-immigrant at all. My parents were immigrants, and as I said, they came here and embraced everything this amazing country gave them.
But we're talking about mass migration, which I would argue is a different thing.
Mass migration is a different thing, because when it's too quick and too fast, you do not, and too much, you don't have assimilation, you don't have integration, you have almost a feeling of being overtaken.
With technology, technology disincentivizes integration, because if you've got newcomers from whatever part of the world they're from, they can use technology to be digitally connected to that 100%. Sphere 24/7.
And it creates a community of resistance almost to the country.
Right. You can go, in the US, you could be in New York or DC, and you go into, you get in the back of an Uber, and you notice they always have two phones. And one phone is running the app and doing what it's supposed to do nominally, hopefully, right? But then the other one, they'll have this phone call on, and I'll look at it, and it's like 4 hours long.
It's true.
And they're speaking in some undecipherable language, and you have no idea what's going on. But clearly, that person is experiencing community, right? And many times with people back home, with sometimes the diaspora here. And the point is, he has no reason to assimilate.
No.
Why would he? He doesn't need to.
Let me ask you a question, because I do find, though, that you guys used to do it better than us. Right, so I do find I'd meet Americans there who, like, I don't know their names. They'd even use American names to try and sound more American. They became an American accent. This is like 10 years ago, and I'd go to the US. I'm like, you know what? Immigrants here have really embraced being American, and perhaps that's reduced a bit. My husband's American. What happened in Minnesota? What is going on?
Well, the answer to that, quick answer
I
to that
feel
is
like it's
called-
like England.
It's 2 words, Barack Obama.
Right. But why Minnesota, not anyone? Like, it's so acute there, whereas the other states, I don't find it's that acute. You have had massive...
There are pockets like that. Dearborn, Michigan. There's one coming up now in Lewiston, Maine.
Right.
There's one in Springfield, Ohio, where there's been a mass importation of 15,000 Haitians. One town, a small
Wow.
town. And my friend is actually, who's from the area, he and I co-authored a few books together, mostly about communism and political violence. And he's actually writing a book about it because he lives in just the next
Right.
town over. And
that's what we talk about when immigration is in huge numbers in a dense area and they densely overtake the area. That's it.
And because it used to be, I'll put it this way, it used to be something, immigration used to only be something you saw in big cities. New York, LA, I'm from the Philadelphia area, but now they're pushing them into small towns. And this is...
So
this
when
is
they
government.
arrive, are
This
they
is
allocated a
government.
town? Tell me how it works.
Well, if you come in through some of these refugee programs, yes.
Right.
They are refugee resettlement agencies within the U.S. government.
Okay.
One of which is in the Department of Health and Human Services, run by Bobby Kennedy now. And we were starting to see, and one of the things that the Trump administration, I think it's like they got in there this time, and Elon came in with Doge,
Yeah.
and it was almost like they had police investigators and detectives coming across a crime scene because you're pulling out. Wait, this agency was telling all of these people to go to Lewiston, Maine, and then you would go in and you'd have NGOs and third party organizations and charity organizations, some using religious titles to bring them in and to offer them translation services, to offer them employment services, and then you would realize, I said, what's going on? How are they getting all these jobs, right?
Yeah.
We found in some instances that they were running secret job boards. So a job board that was not presented to the public,
Interesting.
that would only go straight to these refugee agencies.
Through social media, I guess, and
Well,
stuff like
not even. So
Right.
because to keep it private, so
Wow.
they would not be widely marketed, or there'd be because for legal purposes you would have to make some pronouncement. They'd have a tiny little bit like this, like a tiny little square in the newspaper that nobody reads anymore, and they would say, "See, we promulgated, we announced it. It's right here." But what they would have doing is that these agents would be working with the employers at, they have a meat packing plant or something like this, and they would go and they knew that they could get the cheap workers if they used this system.
Wow.
And so everybody's making money off of it.
Everyone's
along
on the
way.
take.
And here's the other piece of it for the folks who say, "Oh, well, surely they're going to be contributing to the local economy." They're not, because a huge percentage of that money goes back home.
Yeah,
it's not
it's the same here.
It's not happening in the local economy. So even that is a complete lie, and it's always been a lie. It's for those people who are in that chain, whether you're a politician or you're a business owner or you're one of these organizations that's doing the refugee resettlement. You're making money either off the taxpayer or off the labor, and by the way, off of their labor too. Right, this is actually exploiting them.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Which I think should also be
The
pointed
left
out.
are always like, well, we need to import immigrants. We had one famous leader of the Green Party who said, who's going to take care of old people and wipe their bum? We have to. And I'm like, that's kind of insulting actually to immigrants. It's like you say, you want to import this kind of slave labor, and so obviously those are all Democrat areas.
Well, unfortunately, we actually do have some Republicans that are doing it too. Not exactly Trump Republicans, shall we say, but in many cases, you've got like that one in Ohio. That was a Republican operation, and so
isn't that where Vance is governor?
Well, Vance was senator from there.
Senator, sorry.
And so now he obviously is vice president, but it's something that he's been acutely aware of, having grown up in the state and knowing about. And by the way, talk about someone who came from poverty.
Yes.
Talk about someone who was faced with, and I always say
unbelievable story.
I always say this to the left. I say, show me someone who had a worse childhood than J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, please show me
I know.
this. And
It doesn't fit the narrative for
the
them.
mother tried to kill them all at one point. Right?
Wow.
So everything's good now.
Right.
But I just mean to say that it is.
He went to Yale. He went to Yale.
He's been very public about all this. And so that's why it's a personal story, but I'll put it out that way. But the point is that J.D. Vance creates a huge problem for the left,
of course,
because people like that aren't supposed to exist.
No,
people like that, you're not supposed to be able to come from poverty, from a drug-infused background and a broken home by all definitions. And
His mum was a drug addict, right?
she was, and she's clean now, I believe,
Yeah.
10 years, over 10 years, which is phenomenal. She's still around.
Amazing.
And just amazing. And he had this incredible grandmother
I'm
that
sure,
sort of
yeah.
was the
No,
matriarch
the
that
grandmother's
pulled them
a
all
legend.
through.
Yeah,
You've seen the movie?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's great. And the book is phenomenal. He's got a new book out now. Yeah, I'm promoting all my friends and
No,
vice
because
president's book.
people try and paint him like a villain.
And they have to, because he breaks all of their narratives.
100%.
Here's a guy who faced actual oppression, actual conditions that would have destroyed
Yes.
most people and are horrific. But he raises over them, joins the military, right? Joins the Marines.
Believes in the country.
Believes in the country, goes over to fight in Iraq, then comes back, uses that benefit to go to college, gets into Yale.
I mean, remarkable.
And then,
and look where he is now.
He goes and becomes,
And he's such a fabulous,
success. And with the president, President Donald Trump, he's this Fifth Avenue billionaire, but he would always speak to the working class. He would speak to, what they would call the forgotten man. J.D. Vance actually is one of them. And that's why he creates such a problem for these forces, for the left, to say, no, it's not that we don't have human capital. It's that you overlook and you undercut and you do everything you can
you keep that human
to fight
capital
against
the
the human
problem
capital of our countries.
And the problem is that the left tell them, you grew up in poverty, you're black, you're Muslim. They reinforce this as a victim, right? So they keep them as a victim, and they keep that you will never succeed. This country has oppressed you. This country is not giving you a chance. And I think that if you keep telling someone's a victim, it's very difficult to be successful. I say people that come to this country that want to be treated as a victim of this country will never be successful. And that's what the left do.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
If you believe, I believe in self-talk. I think that's.
I believe in self-determination.
Self-determination, that if you believe I'm a victim of circumstance, I'm a victim of the oppressive forces of society.
Exactly.
And by the way, I don't mean to say that I'm not speaking from a political sense now. Obviously there are policies that need reforming, there's no question.
Of course.
However, it starts with whether or not you believe that. And if you refuse to believe it, if you reject it, and you say, no, I'm better than this, and I can do better than this, and I reject everything you're saying to me, and I reject that poison. And I'll put it this way, because Charlie Kirk and Zora Mondami, you look at them age-wise, right? You think, wait, these people are totally separate. But age-wise, they weren't too dissimilar, right? But then you look at the program that they were offering, and I don't even mean the political program. I do, but I even mean the personal program. Here's
it's almost a civic program as opposed to political in a way.
Yes. Here's a guy who's got a beautiful wife, 2 incredible children. He didn't even go to college. And what does he do? He goes around the country, builds this incredible organization, and goes around the country talking about God, talking about the Bible, talking about getting married, talking about how much he loves the country. How he talked about, by the way, he came to Oxford and talked about how much he loved England too, and loved that so many of our values, our Western values, arose, of course, obviously from the mother country here in England. And then you've got Zora Mondami, who says, the world oppresses you, society oppresses you, we have to tear everything down, we have to...
The country oppresses you.
We have to... Well, and Mondami, of course, he takes as this class, which is a classic Marxist formulation, by the way, but he takes it, and then what do they do? They inject race and gender.
Always.
Right, they always inject race and gender. This is the new addition to Leninism, where now you've got... and what did I confronted Mondami on this in the Oval Office to his face. And I said, sir, your own government, your own administration there in New York said that you were going to tax white neighborhoods at a higher rate than others. What did you mean by that?
Yeah.
How is that not racial? And he said, well, it was we were describing the neighborhoods by their race.
but it's the same here. So we have a Sadiq Khan who, if you criticize him, it's because you're Islamophobic.
Oh, naturally.
You know what I mean? It's not because he's got a really rubbish record and crime is at an all-time high. And listen, we have public jobs, scholarships that are based on the color of your skin.
Right.
And I'm sure it's the same in America.
Of course.
In the UK, only about 16% of white working class boys end up at university. In terms of black and Asian, it's over 50%. But if you have a program that specifically targets white working class boys, it's deemed racist. So nobody dares to, they are the forgotten souls of this country. Nobody dares to champion them because they'll be called racist. it is disgusting that anything can be based on the color of your skin.
No, and then of course we see.
I have an issue with I was in America and I went on the Target website.
Yeah.
And they had a whole section of black-owned businesses.
They do.
What the hell is that about?
Yeah.
How is that allowed in this day and age?
Even when you go into some of the, like a Uber Eats app, they'll say, "Do you want to support black-owned businesses?" And
Imagine if you had
it's like-
white-owned businesses.
And it's like, "Don't want a coffee."
Yeah.
I just want a coffee.
What's the color of the skin of the owner got to do with anything?
Right.
You know, and they've made race at the forefront of everything, but
That being
it's
said,
only
if I'm going to get Chinese food, I kind of would want a Chinese person to be making it. Just saying.
Listen. I'm sure. For me, it has to go back to a meritocracy. You know,
But again-
I really
but
don't care
again,
what the color
that's
of
the
your skin
name
is.
of the business.
Yeah.
Is the Chinese restaurant or a Jamaican restaurant? Sure. I'm going because of a specific reason. That's not because of race. That's because of these are the people who made this
A special
food
cultural skill.
or a cultural
It's a cultural skill.
and that's what we're going for. And why not celebrate those things?
Yeah.
Why not simply celebrate?
But you're celebrating a
those things
culture.
that you already know.
You're not celebrating. You know, a person with black skin could be from many different cultures. You could have a Caribbean culture, an African culture. So you're not celebrating a culture. It literally comes down to the color of their skin. And
then by the way, if you want to scam a system like that, all you need to do, by the way, if you're enterprising, and you see this a lot with these NGOs, you hire one person as the face and say, "Oh, we're a black-owned business now,"
Yes.
but then you have everybody else could be whatever you want.
yeah, I mean, I do think there's a big problem with that, and I think the more that the left and the progressives push that, we will never be united. You know, we should all be united. We are all British. We are, you know, you're all American. And I was lucky to be in Washington for the 250 celebration, and one thing that
You were there on July 4th, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, so did I.
yeah.
Did you stay up for the late fireworks?
I did, because there was somehow thunderstorms. You can't celebrate in thunderstorms.
Yeah, it was
we take
strange.
rain very unseriously in this country. It's almost like
It's raining all the time.
yeah. But across the city,
It was phenomenal,
The
though,
whole
wasn't it?
theme was one word, and that's freedom.
Yes.
And I see freedom as freedom from the tyranny of the state, right? And we have an ever-encroaching, and it's a big focus of mine, we have an ever-encroaching tyranny of the state in this country. They want to control every aspect of our lives, whether it's, they don't believe in private property anymore. So right now they want to tax wealth as like income. You know, they don't recognize that wealth, for me to build that wealth, it took risk, it took years. And if I had lost all that, I would absorb all the loss, not the state.
Right.
And so they don't even believe in the concept of private property anymore. It is to be requisitioned to pay for government failures. They want to change the algorithm in YouTube so that mainstream medias go to the top of the algorithm. They want to censor social media during elections.
Just since I've been here, so I'm used to. I've only been here 4 days this time, and but coming prior, I think it was about 5 years the last time I was here. That going onto X with Elon Musk, which is totally unfettered in the U.S. You can be community noted and people correspond, sure. But I come here and this video has been disabled in your region. I said, what is this?
What is this?
I say, what's that? You know?
And Jack, we'll end on this because we have to go. But who decided that?
Right.
Who is the arbiter of what I should see and should not see? Some random minister? You know what I mean? Who is the how dare they be the arbiter of what information I can see as an adult?
And this is the problem, because when you start believing this, those types of ideas and those types of ideologies go down to a lower level. And if you start thinking that this person should be censored, and then you try to get them censored online, it doesn't work. You try to get them censored on campus, it doesn't work. You don't think that you can enter into speech with them, because to do so would violate your moral principles. And so, and we saw a video of this. We actually saw the video of the guy climbing up on the roof and shooting Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And
well, we've had one of our very own was murdered as well.
And my heart goes out. I've been reading the headlines since I've been here. Anne Whitcomb, I didn't know her. All the videos I've seen, she just seems like one of the sweetest people.
She always said something that stuck to me.
Yes.
And it was, what we've been discussing, she said, no one should have the security of not being offended. No one has the right not to be offended.
Wow.
Right? And I hope to God that she wasn't just murdered for offending someone. You know? Because if you don't have the freedom to offend, you don't have freedom.
No, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Completely.
Thank you very much for coming, Jack.
Thank you. God
Thank
bless.
you. Thank you. God bless. Thank
Amazing
you.
interview. Can we have one comment quickly, Jack, before you go?
Yeah.
Just this. I think everyone should watch it later on screen there.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I think the film for J.D. Vance is The Hillbilly Elegy. It's based on J.D. Vance's life. I haven't seen the movie. It's amazing. I mean, I know his book. I'm always amazed.
Glenn Close.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed also at, all the Republic, like even
Amy Adams.
DeSantis' story is remarkable as well. He ended up going to Yale as well. He didn't come from a privileged background.
Nope.
No, and he was great. I mean, I'm a big fan. So,
Brilliant.
Yeah, watch the movie and don't believe everything you read about J.D. Vance, because they do like to portray him as some evil person.
And I would say this about Charlie and J.D. myself, obviously. Just watch the videos.
Yeah.
Just watch them for them. Don't listen to what someone else said about them. Just don't listen to what someone else said about if J.D. Vance is on Joe Rogan or Charlie's doing something. Just watch his videos.
And watch the way J.D. Vance does an interview. He breaks things down. He's so unaggressive in the way he dismantles the argument of the interviewer.
Well, it helps that he's typically a standard deviation higher in terms of intelligence than whoever's interviewing him.
Super intelligent and very reasonable. I've got this thing sticking out. I'm not sure what that is. But thank you very much, Jack.
I always call that my Men in Black.
Yeah, exactly. Hello. Thank you very much, Jack.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi there. Edward Hughes here with your Thursday Bulletin. Keir Starmer marked the end of an era with an emotional final Prime Minister's questions yesterday, telling MPs, "This is the end of my political journey," before receiving a standing ovation. He paid tribute to his family and colleagues and pledged full support to his successor as Labour navigates its leadership transition, with Knob of the North Andy Burnham widely tipped for a bigger role. The murder of former MP Anne Widdecombe remains front and centre. Counter-terrorism police are investigating it as a targeted attack, and senior Reform UK figures are now receiving round-the-clock protection amid heightened threats to politicians. On the pitch, devastating scenes for England as Argentina fought back to win 2-1 in the World Cup semi-final, ending the Three Lions run despite strong showings from Jude Bellingham. International tensions continue with further developments in the US strikes on Iran. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
And wasn't that amazing? Yeah. It's so interesting to hear what's happening across the pond, because sometimes it does mirror what's happening here. And next guest is someone who has always been forthright in his battle and his fight for the truth. Raja Miah, he's a political commentator. You all know him as waging the war for the truth to come out about grooming gangs. And he's chasing Burnham and to expose the truth. Hi, Raja, how are you? We've texted a few times, but I don't think we've ever met, sadly.
No, we've spoken a few times, Laila, but we've never met in person. I'm sure it'll happen.
I'm sure it will happen. Well, it's happening now, kind of. So, Raja, you are from the north.
I am. I'm from Oldham. I grew up in Oldham.
Yeah.
Born in Bradford. Grew up in Oldham. Yeah.
So, us in the south, as we don't follow the north that closely. Perhaps we should follow it more. But tell us, what do you think? What do you think about Burnham?
I voted when in my distant past. I was a Labour Party member, and when he first stood to be leader, my office was actually next door to his campaign headquarters, and I looked forward to meeting him. I never got to meet him, but I voted and I supported him. And the older I've got and the wiser I've got, it's smoke and mirrors with him, Laila. Regardless of your politics, it's smoke and mirrors. He's used Greater Manchester as a stepping stone. Yeah. He stepped aside from wanting to fix the Labour Party. Whatever we thought of Keir Starmer, he was part of removing, the anti-Semitism that infested the party. And Burnham sidestepped it, and now he's the saviour. But I have very little time for him. What he's done in Greater Manchester is a shambles. He came in and on the promise he was going to end rough sleeping. I'm here, big boy Andy's here. What do you lot know? And I think it's doubled since he was here. Yeah, there's the massive social housing scandal The Telegraph have been reporting on it extensively, so this is no longer hidden.
Tell our viewers a bit about it for those that don't have a Telegraph subscription.
He's been there's skyscrapers built with public money. Very, very millionaire, the millionaire, billionaire sort of skyscrapers all across the city, built with public money to a private developer who's now hanging out in Monaco.
Right. I mean, it's a bit like,
It's as straightforward as that. And, all the social housing money that was promised, none of it translated. So it's millionaire wealth. He presents himself as a man of the people, but he's surrounded by big business, Laila, and he has benefited some of the biggest businesses in Greater Manchester at the expense of ordinary people. But his PR is something to be admired. Unfortunately, his PR, the way the Manchester Evening News, and he's surrounded by the, I call them the fake liberal metropolitan elite. Those who want to promote them, who want a job in marketing in the newspapers, the modern day journalists. He's surrounded himself with those left-leaning types, and he's told a story that is as far removed from the truth as possible. And as someone from spent time in Manchester, lived in Manchester, the city's better without him, Laila. That's the he's now the country.
He might come back, by the way.
He's now the country's problem. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, you talk about a PR campaign, and for sure it's great, but I blame the journalists, Roger. They haven't even attempted to. Yeah, sure, the Telegraph is reporting on this, but is it a big story? Is it spoken about on TV shows?
No.
People could.
No, they've not jumped on him. Like how they jump on Farage or some of the others.
Exactly.
He's protected.
You could be a reform supporter or not, but I've said this before, and we welcome scrutiny. But in order for there to be objective journalism, it has to be the same scrutiny across the board. For instance, we do know that Labour gave £138 million worth of government contracts to donors within their first year. Where if anyone's talking about cash for favours or cash for influence, that is a direct example. The Tories gave billions of pounds in government contracts to donors.
Yes, agreed. And
I don't see the headlines about that. And what you talk about now, I don't see the headline. And if journalists, because he's avoided scrutiny, parliament scrutiny, press scrutiny, the least they could do is dig into his record in Manchester, as you've highlighted, and outline it for all of us to see. But they don't. They're so focused on the fact that one of our own was killed, and how dare we lay flowers or deflect from it. It's quite remarkable.
I found that disgraceful. The laying of flowers is the sort of tribute that it's the minimum we expect of all of us. And to weaponize that against him, I thought was disgraceful. But you can see it yourself, Laila. You've been in this space long enough. The establishment is against us, and the mainstream media is essentially part of the machinery of the state. And no more so with Andy Burnham, and no more so. And I'll say this with you, and I'll share this with whoever, is the grooming gang cover-ups.
Yeah, I was going to get into that.
Andy Burnham's assurance reviews. Maggie Oliver is on record. It's not just me. Maggie Oliver is on record criticising Burnham, and I'm very clear. Burnham should be called to the national inquiry to testify for his actions, and specifically for something called Operation Hexagon. Now, people can argue with me what it was set up to do or what it wasn't set up to do, but Operation Hexagon exists.
What is it?
It went after the whistleblowers in Oldham.
Wow.
So it was a joint Greater Manchester Police and Oldham Council operation. It went after the whistleblowers. It arrested me multiple times. And Burnham was police and crime commissioner throughout his tenure as Greater Manchester Mayor. So this is directly one of his police campaigns. And I heard your last interview with the Turning Point gentleman, and you made reference to tyranny. And this is what this is. If you want to objectively define tyranny, then what we are experiencing here is tyranny, and Burnham is part of that.
So tell us why. So we're going to two things I think that the viewers will be really interested in. Exactly how Burnham has dealt with the grooming gangs. He says he held an investigation. For me, what's the point in investigation if no one that covered it up is held to account? you find findings and then they're ignored. So if you could highlight that, and then why you were arrested.
Absolutely. I think in terms of the assurance review, the assurance review's terms of reference. Is that
the review that Burnham held in Manchester?
Yeah, it's the review that Burnham held in Oldham. So he held three assurance reviews. This was in 2019 or so. I think it started. It reported in 2022, 2023. COVID delayed it. He brought in his experts, Malcolm Newsom and Gary Ridgway.
Who were they?
They were his experts. One is a retired police, or was a former police officer, and the other gentleman, Malcolm Newsom, was involved in some of the Rotherham reporting. But they are. I don't want to be rude, but as a campaigner, I describe them as establishment, if not establishment fixers. They are people who smooth things over.
Right.
And we experienced that in Oldham. The terms of reference excluded schools, excluded children's homes. So all of the sort of places you would find children would be groomed and were taken away to be trafficked and gang raped, I'm afraid, Laila.
Yeah,
those places were excluded. Those places were excluded from the inquiry. We forced them to include the shisha bars. I'd released information that children were being dragged off the street in broad daylight into shisha bars. They confirmed all of that, and they hid it in the way they confirmed it. So every case they examined, they confirmed that children were groomed, they were raped, and the authorities failed them. They hid in the small print that Shabir Ahmed did indeed have a senior role in the Labour Party. It's information I'd released. Shabir Ahmed worked for the council. He had access to children whilst he worked for the council. He essentially sold children out of his little black book whilst being seconded to the Pakistani Community Centre. They still covered up that he sat on the board of the Citizens Advice Bureau. To sit on the board of the Citizens Advice Bureau, you've got to be one of the great and the good in the town. It's one of those positions that's reserved for establishment figures who have status. All of that was hidden, and they continued to say that first and foremost, we have been presented with no evidence of a cover-up. The devil's in the detail. We have been presented with no evidence means we did not go looking for any evidence.
Yeah. We had experts that we appointed who didn't say there was any evidence, basically. We presented
We didn't go looking for the evidence. The terms of reference excluded us from investigating a cover-up, and yet we decided to launch the report by saying we've been provided with no evidence. Immediately after his assurance review was published, and it is a cover-up, it's a cover-up of the cover-up. Immediately after it was published, it's Angela Rayner, who was part of an MP for Oldham, Jim McMahon, the MP for Oldham, Debbie Abrahams, released a statement on X on parliamentary letterhead, essentially saying this is the end of the matter. This was a conspiracy theory. It's time to move on. And we were forced to campaign for 3 further years, Laila, which eventually helped force what we have as the national inquiry. If Andy Burnham had his way, the cover-up would have been complete with his report. And just to quantify some of that, Operation Hexagon is referenced in his assurance review, and Operation Hexagon is the joint Greater Manchester Police and Oldham Council investigation launched to come after me and people in my town who spoke out against the cover-up of the gang rape of our town's children. So the police operation under Burnham was launched to come after whistleblowers and campaigners. And Roger, it falsified evidence. It falsified evidence and failed multiple times. It dragged me into court, Laila, and it failed to prosecute me because the evidence had been fabricated. And all of that Burnham is responsible for, and Burnham must be called to give evidence to the national inquiry, even if he is Prime Minister. That man has to be called to give evidence.
Let me ask, so obviously it cost a lot of money, took a lot of time, potentially gave hope to the victims. Has anyone lost their job since that? Has anyone been prosecuted apart from some of the groomers? Anyone who covered it up? Zero. There is zero accountability, Roger.
It's worse. It's worse than that. They set up, as a consequence of it, they set up a police operation called Operation Sherwood. Every now and then, when the pressure mounts, Operation Sherwood with the newspapers go out and dawn raid someone's house, kick the door in, and you see the local newspapers present, images of we've arrested someone else. So far, Operation Sherwood has convicted one individual. He's not of the Pakistani rape gangs. It's to do with some online sort of child abuse event. The men we exposed, not one of them has been arrested and charged or convicted. And the politicians, the police officers, and the public officials we've exposed, they've gone on to greater things. Forget being, running away. The former council leader, and this is a matter of fact, a woman called Amanda Chadderton, who sat next to Andy Burnham when the report was released. She stood up in a council meeting with survivors in the public gallery. We were all campaigning for a national inquiry, and she stood up, and her defense against a national inquiry were the words, "You can't say it destroyed people's lives."
Wow. We removed
her. We removed her from being a councillor. The week before we removed her, my house was dawn raided and I was arrested.
Wow.
Completely fabricated. And the police officers as good as admitted I had been arrested to prevent me from lawfully campaigning to remove Amanda Chadderton from her position as council leader.
Wow.
I walked out the police station. I told them to come and arrest me again if they wanted, went back to delivering leaflets, and we removed Amanda Chadderton as council leader. She was the third council leader in a row we removed. And the consequence of that was she was given a job by Yvette Cooper, who went on to become Home Secretary.
Wow.
This is how deep this goes. Yeah.
And I'm actually in shock, and I think viewers are in shock right now. And obviously you have the support of the victims. And
we
so
have
two
so
things.
much support from victims, yeah, absolutely. Because what we've managed to do, Laila, and the way I campaigned and the space I came from, we managed to take it in a town such as ours away from you're a far right, you're a racist, simply because of my background and the way I spoke about these issues. But that didn't stop the police from arresting me as a racist.
Yeah. And so you talk about a national inquiry that were happening now, but Longfield was the child commissioner, and she issued reports about the grooming gangs and signed off on them where they did not mention the ethnicity of the rapists. Let's not call them groomers, of the rapists.
Baroness Longfield is a Labour Party appointment. Lead up to the appointment of the chair, Baroness Longfield had supported Bridget Phillipson, I think, to be the leader or deputy leader at one point of the party. So she's not just a passive one, she's a very active Labour Party figure.
And you've got to ask yourself, how can we have trust?
Well, we haven't,
national
have we?
inquiry. No one points this out. Even the Conservatives are on board with this national inquiry. She is a Labour peer. They're marking their own homework. Why not? Why all these kind of inquiries always have a judge? Why did they not appoint a judge?
Well, the first thing they tried to appoint was a policeman, a former policeman with direct links to the Labour Party. Guy called, I think, Jim Gamble was his name.
Yeah.
And Fiona Goddard, Eliane Reynolds, and a few others resigned in protest from the advisory board. Jess Phillips got caught. She basically tried to call Fiona Goddard a liar. Fiona Goddard had kept all the text messages and published them. And then they basically shut down the advisory board and appointed Baroness Longfield. And we know it's a fix, Laila. We know it is. And our job
100%.
for the next 3 years.
It doesn't make sense. Also, the terms of reference.
No, it does make sense. It does make sense.
It does. You're right. It does make sense. It's part of the current. And the terms of reference say that we're not going to examine every town. We're not going to examine everywhere it went. So they're still telling girls who have been gang raped, like you say, that your story is not important enough. Your town is not important enough to be investigated.
Oh, it's worse. It's worse than that. So I released something 2 days ago because on the 13th, they were meant to publish the selection criteria. And it didn't turn up. They released some nonsense about a hub being established where newsletters will go and so forth. Where's the selection criteria?
Yeah, right.
And I released something, and the press office contacted me. Raja, you might want to look at this. They had published the selection criteria 2 weeks earlier. It was hidden in the small print somewhere.
Of course.
And I look reading this and I'm laughing because the selection criteria gives them the Longfield and her team the veto to say yes to anywhere and no to anywhere. That's
It's disgusting.
what they say see fit. So there is no selection criteria. And to make it worse, Laila, what we've forced is Jess Phillips put her name to a letter 2 weeks ago, requesting that the national inquiry come to Birmingham. But Jess Phillips knows full well that the evidence the national inquiry, when it does come to Birmingham, will have to look at really is the city council's documented cover-up. And it is a documented cover-up that goes back to 1990. And the inquiry has conveniently got a cut-off date of 1996. Wow. So but even if it comes to Birmingham, it is restricted from looking at the actual documents that prove a cover-up. And you should worry about that because the chief executive at the time is a guy called Sir Lyons, who went on to chair the BBC Trust after being the chief executive of Birmingham, and now is helping the Labour government design new towns and new cities. So they are neck deep in this.
It's a cabal.
And the more you unravel, the more you peel, the more you find.
Someone told me also, like I was speaking to a journalist who said that the council safeguarding boards, which are meant to safeguard these young girls, their findings, everything is opaque and they are not subject to freedom of information requests. You heard of this?
Yeah, they use the data protection laws and stuff to try and get around
suppress
that.
information.
Yeah, but the National Inquiry can access that information. But as we're finding, and I think the Conservatives brought it up about 6 months ago, once the National Inquiry was announced, a preservation of evidence order should have been given to every council.
Yeah,
that never went
100%.
out. That never went out. That never went out.
And you know, it's interesting because, you know, obviously I live in London and I've spoken to grooming gang victims, and I read reports. You know, I read one report of a beautiful young girl who was brought in from Oxford, and in her account she says there were hundreds of men when she was brought to London from Oxford. Another girl said that her rapist owed men in London, and so she was driven to London and gang raped overnight by so many men.
What we found out now, Laila, and again, Jess Phillips in a letter that she signed with others from Birmingham Council, and it makes reference to Birmingham as a transport hub.
Right.
Acknowledged. So this is a final, you know, she never owned up to any of this when she was safeguarding minister. In fact, she wrote and blocked an inquiry in Oldham, which kicked this off with Elon Musk intervening in January 2025. But what we're now finding is this is it's a network of men that operated from all the way from Scotland all the way down to the south in Wales. So this isn't just a northern issue. These men operated the way they did, and they operated with impunity. It was like they had diplomatic immunity.
Yeah, it's like they had diplomatic. Well, they had democratic immunity, right? Because they operate as a voting bloc.
Yes,
and I've said this before.
I've said, we've both said this, and we agree. Yeah. There's a direct correlation with the Labour Party, and the National Inquiry is avoiding trying to look at that.
In terms of the correlation. I have no faith in it, and I have no faith that anyone who's involved in the Labour Party will ever have accountability. And it breaks my heart. You know, I've got teenage girls. It breaks my heart. And one thing I've always said, that if I do become mayor, there will be a reckoning, not only for all the groomers, but there will be a reckoning for anyone who covered it up. It will be no holds barred. You know, I won't owe any favours. And whether it's police, whether it's anyone, I feel that they need to be... They don't only need to lose their job. I'm tired of politicians ruining the lives of people and looking in the camera and say, oh, I've taken accountability, I've said sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it in this instance. For me, they need to be prosecuted.
Need to go to prison. Politicians need to go to prison for what they've done. Yeah.
And Roger, we're going to end here, but one short answer. What made you take up the fight?
I have a daughter. This is my home. This is my town. These are my children.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Thank you very much, Roger. You're fighting the right cause. You're on the right side of history, that's for sure. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. I mean, it's hard to hear that and think that the person involved in all that, is going to be anointed as our Prime Minister? Where's the scrutiny? Has he ever been asked about this? Has any press ever hounded him, doorstepped his children? Not that I'm saying you should. Has anyone ever asked him about this? What has come of that, investigation? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We think that we live in a free, democratic, uncorrupt country, but then you hear things like that and you're like, do we? Do we really? Anyway, our next guest is it's a different matter, but one that affects us all. I know I have a car, and his name is Mark Morrill.
No, we've got them in now, sorry.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Apologies, there you go. Them
Apologies.
I can pretend to be Mark Morrill if you want me
Hello,
to.
how are you?
Not bad at all. What about yourself?
Fine, thank you.
You got some pretty heavy-hitting guests today. That last
I know.
interview was utterly shocking. And if Andy Burnham gets away with this, then nothing's changed.
Of course he'll get away with it. What changes? Since when does the establishment, and I'm gonna again define my definition of the establishment. It doesn't depend where you went to school. It doesn't depend if you're rich, if you're successful. Otherwise, every footballer, celebrity, would be the establishment. It is those that had the levers of power that could allocate capital, write regulation, write our laws, cover up things like this, and decide what the political consensus, what is allowed to be discussed. That is the press, and that is politicians. That is what we call the establishment, and it doesn't really matter what your background is. If you had power over that, then you are the establishment. And do they ever go after their own?
No, they don't. When I was
Right.
a member of Parliament, one of my constituents, Des James, his daughter, was murdered in an
Wow.
army centre called Deep Cut Army Barracks. And I say murdered; they can come after me if
Oh,
they want. They
Deepak, of
never
course,
have.
I remember.
And the Deep Cut Army Barracks, and there were probably 4 murders we uncovered altogether, and all we had was obstruction. And when politicians of any party, including Conservatives, wanted to help us, then they'd get investigated and suspended. And in the end, I have no doubt whatever that they were murdered. One of the key witnesses drowned. It was just surprising. He was taken to Germany, and there he drowned in about 12 inches of water, which was surprising because he had actually represented Britain in swimming.
Wow.
So they're willing to kill people. And then you've got the David Kelly situation where
Yeah.
I was chair of the All-Party Baha'i group. I'm not a Baha'i myself, but I have a lot of respect for them. And they're absolutely religious about not committing suicide. It's fundamental. And of course, then we were told he killed himself, but he didn't. So you're dead right. And I have to say, having been an MP for 13 years, all around me, I used to see this. And when you expose things, they just shrug. They go, well, it's just the way things are. And of course, we killed hundreds of thousands, maybe 1.5 million Iraqis on a lie. But Tony Blair ironically went on to be a peace envoy. Didn't really see how that kind of qualified him to do that.
But I mean, worse, we sent our men and women to fight for us, risk their lives, leave their family. And then we have an Attorney General and a Prime Minister who wanted to go after them in court.
Yeah.
I mean, in
Well,
another time, that would be called treason, really.
Treason's the right word. Basically, the whole, to use this, just one example, the Iraq War was based on a total lie. And people like me...
And of course,
who voted-
people forget that Andy Burnham voted for it. I remember when I was, sorry to interrupt, when I was campaigning in Makerfield, I knocked on a man's door and he told me his son died in Iraq. And he said, I'll never forget that Andy Burnham voted for it. And, he almost needs like a sheet telling everyone this is what Burnham did. He's not some newcomer. He's not some like messiah from the north. He has been around, and his decisions and his votes and his participation in politics has had huge consequences on our country, and not good ones.
Andy Burnham is a personable chap. I was an MP with him, and as a personal level, I like him. Far more intelligent than Keir Starmer. But you put your finger on it. Everybody makes mistakes. Everyone has a history. And if we want saints to run the country, we need to wait for the second coming. But I don't want to wait that long, really. But the issue for me is the hypocrisy. It's the double standards. It's
Yeah.
the fact that they're willing to play with other people's lives without ever contemplating sending their own son or daughter to the front line. And it's the same as migration. A friend of mine had just arrived, you just had an American on a few minutes ago, a friend of mine just arrived in Britain from the United States after many years, and he said he just couldn't believe the change. He couldn't believe the change, and he was shocked by it. And none of this affects people because you don't have an HMO next to 10 Downing Street. You don't have an HMO next to where Angela Rayner just bought her property. So the double standards are palpable, and that's why people are so angry. That's why people are so fed up with the Uni Party. And when you look at the quality of people in that Uni Party, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, it's tragic, really. The politics has gone down the pan because the quality of the politicians has gone down.
But I think also people are so frustrated because they just didn't vote for it. And if they speak against it, they're demonized and looked down on as divisive or racist. And it is a remarkable state of play. And I know you were a Conservative. How did you feel about Kemi on the, in the same period that we've just lost one of our own, an ex-Conservative MP, a real freedom fighter? She really believed in freedom of speech, and she was brutally murdered as in a targeted attack. And Kemi chose her last PMQs to, and also and contrast that at the same time that we're about to have an anointed leader, Prime Minister, with zero scrutiny. She said that the one public debate, TV debate that should be aired is between Nigel Farage and Count Binface to get a whole laugh out of Parliament. To mock us at this time, scrutinise us fine, and to not say that the one televised debate we really need is to see our future Prime Minister. It makes you feel that they are all in on it somehow.
Yeah, I was a Lib Dem MP, but
sorry,
of
you were
course
Lib Dem,
Nick Clegg ruined the Liberal
I'm not sure that's any better.
That's okay. We looked like them.
Not sure. I'm
It's
not
an easy-
sure.
no, it's
I'm not
actually
sure if
worse.
Davey's any better at this point. But
It was actually worse because the Liberal Democrats' whole reputation was annihilated by the weakness of Nick Clegg, who wasn't anything really. He wasn't Conservative, he wasn't Lib Dem, he was just in for himself.
But he got
So
such
it's
a
an
good
easy
job
mistake
after,
to
by the
make.
way. How did that happen? How did he get that job in Meta?
Because Meta just wanted a title. Meta's got so
Right.
much money that they don't really care too much about that kind of thing. It's an appalling indictment of the whole Meta organisation, basically, because Nick Clegg was unquestionably the worst leader of the Liberal Democrats, even worse than Jo Swinson, who lost her seat when she was
Oh,
leader.
she
But
was.
just the joke, really. It's awful. I actually predicted her demise on the late Alex Salmond's show, and even Alex didn't believe it would happen, but it did. But you had really asked a really central question here. Kemi Badenoch was just somehow trying to essentially play the man, because
It was a cheap dig,
Yeah.
and I don't think it was becoming of Parliament. We're mourning an MP, an ex-MP. We're mourning a colleague of ours. We're mourning one of our most fervent spokespeople. I don't think it was becoming of Parliament to do that. But yeah, I'm very interested actually that you're here, Lem, because I've always wondered, and I think a lot of people do, what do the Liberal Democrats what have they ever stood for? I feel like they're like a smorgasbord of nothing.
in
I don't even
1989,
know.
in 1989, I won't go too far into the history. In 1989,
No, I'm
I joined-
curious. Yeah. Of their
Well, I'll
demise,
tell-
kind of.
I was an independent until 89, many decades ago now, but I was joined because there's a chap called Paddy Ashton who was the
Yeah, I
leader.
remember
and
Paddy Ashton.
He really believed in freedom. He really
Right.
believed in liberty and personal choice, and that's why I joined. If
Right.
it had been a different part, that's really the thing I care about. I think governments are very bad at economics, but they can make a difference socially, and that's what they believed in. But the question you've asked is absolutely right. In this century, they've ended up believing in nothing. Well, they believe in nonsense. They believe in a non-existent climate emergency. They believe that talking about people's sexual identity is so important that we should have months and months of pride marches all over the country. What they've become is a kind of caricature of middle-class hand-wringing, thinking, oh, we've just got to do the right things. They don't tend to be working class. They don't tend to be people who look at the science. And it'd be if you were a Liberal Democrat presenter, you'd now be saying, "Oh no, we can't really challenge the science on the climate emergency." They've become cultists with
Right.
this, and sadly, I used to share an office with Ed Davey. He's a pleasant enough guy, but he's not really a leader. So they don't really believe in anything. They're kind of a yellowish version of the Green Party,
They're
or
kind
even
of a
worse in a
protest
way.
vote. I speak to some people who are like, I used to be Conservative, I'm not sure about reform, I don't like Labour, I'm just going to vote Lib Dems. It's almost like they've almost inhabited that area where people who don't really care that much about politics almost vote for Lib Dems.
Yeah, I shifted my interest to reform because reform are doing what the Lib Dems were doing 30 years ago, actually a genuine alternative. And the same thing's happening now to reform that happened to the Lib Dems. Mockery, mainly, and just
Right.
joking and all this sort of thing. It's actually worse now, though, because back in the early 90s, people weren't being murdered in Britain for their politics. Now they are. And you also made a really good point earlier on about donations and jobs for the boys and all that. This endless hounding of Reform UK people, also kicking up hate. And this is almost a green light for people to hate Reform characters at the same time as the Labour Party and the Conservatives particularly have had their nose in the trough for decades.
Listen, the Conservatives gave billions of pounds of public contracts. But nobody questions it. Anyway, Olympic, I'm sorry, we're going to have to cut it there. It's very nice to speak to you. Good to see you too.
And doing a great job. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.
And you.
We're going to the news now, I believe. Am I correct? Let's see what's...
Edward Hughes here with your Thursday bulletin. Keir Starmer marked the end of an era with an emotional final Prime Minister's questions yesterday, telling MPs, "This is the end of my political journey," before receiving a standing ovation. He paid tribute to his family and colleagues and pledged full support to his successor as Labour navigates its leadership transition, with Knob of the North Andy Burnham widely tipped for a bigger role. The murder of former MP Anne Widdecombe remains front and centre. Counter-terrorism police are investigating it as a targeted attack, and senior Reform UK figures are now receiving round-the-clock protection amid heightened threats to politicians. On the pitch, devastating scenes for England as Argentina fought back to win 2-1 in the World Cup semi-final, ending the Three Lions run despite strong showings from Jude Bellingham. International tensions continue with further developments in the US strikes on Iran. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Hello. So I've switched to headphones just because, it looks cooler. No, but the things in my ear are not great. So one of the symbols of a declining country, I think, are potholes. And they're seen as a minor issue, but I think they're actually quite a major issue. They cost a fortune to drivers, and somehow councils cannot get a grip of them. So I'm honoured to have Mike Morell, who, aka Mr. Pothole, what a title. And this is Britain's most prominent road maintenance campaigner. Now, Mark, before we get started, how the hell did you become known as Mr. Pothole?
That was the local media. I was a reporter dubbed me it, and once you get a title, you know what it's like in the media. It just stuck. So
I was called Vigilante Mum as well. Yeah, for the media.
Yeah, no, yeah, I've been following you. I think it's great what you're doing.
Thank you.
I learned that you call me what you like as long as you fix the roads. But
Right.
if it's a title I have to wear it.
How long have you been campaigning for potholes?
Over 13 years.
And has it gotten worse or better?
Yes. But personal success, I've had millions of pounds of resurfacing work carried out, had thousands of potholes repaired.
Wow.
I set up National Pothole Day. My evidence is part of the Transport Select Committee inquiry, Filling the Gap, which is an excellent work, but I have no faith in Parliament or politicians doing anything with all the answers they've got. They just pay it lip service.
Yeah, and to most things. I think you've achieved more than most councils, by the way.
Well, I just try to make a difference. I mean, people ask me what would be a success. There was a small hamlet not far from me called Crowfield. The road, there's no footpath. It's just road. and it was appalling for years. I reported potholes, I campaigned, and I managed to get it resurfaced. There was an elderly lady who had a hip operation, had to go to a neighbouring village to exercise because it wasn't safe to do so. We had a bit of a celebration on Christmas Eve, just as I was finishing the work. Someone sent me a picture of her on Boxing Day, actually able to exercise on her own road outside her house, and she gave me a big hug and thanked me for 20 years of road being appalling. So it's the people thing. I don't want, the title I have to wear and I have to be out in the public, but it's those things that are meaningful.
I understand completely what you mean. And so tell us, how big is the problem right now in the country?
Nationally, if you look at England and Wales, there's a current backlog of £19 billion in carriageway works. Wow. That's the bit between curb to curb. Now, if you included footpaths, bridges, structures, drainage and everything else, we're probably sitting with in excess of £30 billion worth of...
Sorry to interrupt. How do you come... Is that official figures or...?
Well, based upon the 19 for the carriageway, there's a £6 billion backlog in bridge maintenance.
Right.
So if you look at footpaths that are in an appalling state, that's my estimate based upon all figures that I've got and my 13 years of experience. And I've never been challenged using that in the media by the government or authorities. Right. They won't come near me.
I was about to say, I don't think they've even bothered to do the inventory to reach. They're probably thankful for your research. You just think in this day and age, right? My husband's American, and the roads are great. What can we do? What is the solution?
Well, the answer is fairly easy. It's been a decades of underinvestment, and we need to resurface the road. If I was in charge, I would ring fence what we call vehicle excise duty to make it a road tax, because everybody calls it a road tax, that generates about £8.2 billion a year. And then I would allocate that for road maintenance, not capital programs, road maintenance. And I would make every authority have to submit a 10 to 15 year asset plan where they say what roads they're going to resurface. I would hold them account and have a small audit team away from the Department of Transport to monitor the quality and the works being carried out. And they will get funding year on year based upon their performance. If they don't perform up to a certain level in terms of pothole repairs, the way they administer it, then I think they shouldn't get the funding. And that would really make it focused upon the highways authorities. Now, apart from that, there's also lack of training, there's lack of supervision, poor contracts in place. There's a culture where it's patch and mend. That needs to be changed. There's some really good techniques and there's some really good people out there trying to do a good job. They're not all bad, but I do get some appalling pictures and videos of what I call is a complete joke, clowns repairing the road. And I think it needs a complete focus. Now, it was estimated back in 2024 that badly maintained roads was costing the economy £14.4 billion a year. Wow. So invest to save, because if you put £4 billion a year into an annual resurfacing program, year on year, index linked, then you will break the cycle. Unless you do that, it's playing semantics. And we see they're all looking for the holy grail in terms of the magic pothole repair. You need different techniques for different potholes in different defects.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about, Mark. You're saying to resurface the roads. Is that the only way to fix potholes? I mean, surely that's a huge undertaking. And if you do resurface a road, how does a new pothole created and how long will it last without another pothole coming about?
Right. The
Excuse my ignorance.
That's all right, no problem. The wearing surface of the road, if it's resurfaced, should last at least 20 years.
Wow.
Most of our roads now, I think in the Alarm Survey report, says that you'll be lucky to get your road resurfaced in 97 years because there isn't the funding there. Now, if you go back into the history, I mean, I'm a bit of a sod for detail. Funding got cut from local authorities because prior to what they called the New Roads and Street Works Act in 1991, there was the Public Utility Street Works Act 1950. Now, councils had to carry out the permanent repairs of their after any utilities works. Now, I know Westminster used to charge 4 times what we paid as a contractor, because I used to work in gas, to carry out the works. They used to use that to cover some of their costs, but also to put it into their fund. They lost that. Now they've had successive cuts. Now I'm a big critic of councils, but the funding isn't there. Also, they moved away from hot rolled asphalt to a medium dense material that needs resurfacing more at the time they cut resurfacing. So I mean, it's just a colossal thing of own goals, of poor decision making. Now, the only way you're going to do that is to change that, is to resurface the roads, because if you resurface the roads and did it properly, places like Holland resurface their roads every 12 years.
It's much smaller, of course. Let me ask you a question. Is there a super machine out there that we can buy, that you've heard of, that you know, we're a bit stingy, we're not spending on it? Is there anything that we can buy from the US or Japan or?
I mean, I'm looking at all the different techniques across the world. I mean, the biggest machine at the moment in Britain for pothole repairs, and it's not for the odd pothole repair, it's for where an area needs patching and doing, is the Pothole Pro. And that's got politicised.
What a name.
I got that's from JCB. That got politicised. I actually went on social media because Nottinghamshire, obviously as a reform councillor, they are trying to do some really good things up there. They got 2 pothole pros in, and suddenly the Conservatives were saying that it was sort of grandstanding, showing off. Well, I did publish a picture of Kenny in one as well, so and also pointed out the fact of what the actual Pothole Pro can do. Because if you take the politics out, I mean, the Pothole Pro's got no politics. It's being used by over 20 different councils across the country. And it is a very, very successful team at all. The team in Stoke that done the most work with that did 7 years' work in 12 months. But it relies on you backing it up. You have to keep the machine busy. It's an expensive bit of kit. It's used properly.
How much is it?
In the summer period. I think it's under £200,000. But as a capital outlay, I mean, when I said about that ring fence money,
Sadiq Khan's Range Rover's about that much. Yeah.
And well, it's interesting. We'll talk about London in a minute. I would have capital grants within that fund for new bits of technique. I mean, also there's thermal repairs, which is a really, really good technique that can be used because we see poor quality repairs. I mean, I get pictures. I think one of the worst ones was some guys repairing potholes. One had sliders on, and the other one was compacting it with an empty gas canister. Well, I think it was empty. But talking about London, interesting. There's over a £1.2 billion carriageway backlog in London, and 1 in 5 of London's roads has got less than 5 years structural life left in it. And if you get 15 years' time, over 50%. And if you look at the broader thing of capital in terms of capital funding for things like bridges, tunnels, roads, and the infrastructure of London, currently it's estimated as £6.5 billion backlog, which if you become mayor, you might have to face and deal with.
Well, I'm going to have to take your help on that. How about you and I do an audit of what's the most urgent in London?
Yeah, well, you never know.
Can I invite you for that?
Yeah, if you become mayor.
I mean, you saw they almost gave up. They've given up on Hammersmith Bridge.
Oh, I know. That's appalling.
It's appalling.
Absolutely appalling.
A major thoroughway, and they've just given up on it. But yeah, no, yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot of work to be done in London. I mean, number one also is the 20 miles per hour, which is just punishing drivers.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult because, I mean, I visited London quite a bit because my father still lives there. Now, you're constantly monitoring your speed. So are you as aware of pedestrians?
100%, exactly that.
The e-cyclists and the people that are out on all sorts of, electric-powered vehicles around you. I mean, it's becoming... I hate driving in there now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've always said good policy protects people, bad policy punishes people, and this just punishes people. It's not even catching reckless drivers, is it? It's just catching drivers. Thank you very much, Mark. I'm sure we'll have you on again. Super interesting chat. I had no idea of the scale of the problem we face. But one of the messages that came when you were speaking is this really shows that a man can move a mountain. That was about you. So thank you very much for coming on.
I'll just try my best. The
public are behind you. Thank you.
Quick super chat, Laila.
Super chat now. We have super chats. Super chats. From Chris281, I'm genuinely impressed at what a natural Laila is at this. Oh, thank you. Not easy to talk to a camera for hours. No, it's not. But I'm lucky that I'm actually talking to people, so it's kind of like a Zoom. But I can't take credit for it. The guests have been so amazing that it almost flows, and it really does come down to the guests. So thank you for everyone that appeared on the show.
We've got June Slater here now.
Oh, June. I've met June. Hello, June.
Hello there.
No, you're always the glamorous June.
Thanks for that.
We met in Preston, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You came to a reform event and you were the guest speaker. And yeah, it was a good event. And you
It's a
went
long
down
time
well.
ago, wasn't it? Feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, months.
I know. So, how do you feel? How do you feel being part? You know, I know you're not party political, but what do you think the future holds for reform and the freedom to speak our mind? I know you're very outspoken on certain things.
What do I think it holds up? Well, I think a glimpse into the future was Prime Minister's question time yesterday. I thought it was appalling. That man should have left office with a cardboard box, his desktop paraphernalia, a pot plant, and goodbye. You know, this sending him off with accolades from Kemi Badenoch, I thought was absolutely... The man is going because even his own party don't want him.
I know.
Nobody wants him. And he didn't get a landslide victory. Is Kemi a bit duff at maths? He got in because most people didn't vote. And if they voted, if a small party like Reform had had time to tool up 12 months earlier, it would have been a different story. It would have been probably a coalition with the Tories and
But
Reform.
also, in a private, let's face it, he got fired, right?
Yeah.
In a private big country, in a company, if you get fired, no one's standing up and clapping for you and saying how great you are. Then why'd you fire him? You know?
And not only that, this coming from the lead opposition. You see, the trouble is people get swept away with PMQs and it's meaningless. It's theatre.
Yeah.
They should never have televised it. For a start, most of them aren't good looking enough to be on telly. They're boring. And they
become boring.
Yeah, and they live for the podcast. They want to be interviewed on Sky TV. I've even seen...
apart from Burnham.
Andy...
He doesn't want to be interviewed.
Well, he doesn't want to be interviewed now. He will be when he's Prime Minister. He's got no policies, that's why. And, you know, the typical example of how this shaft reform. Rachel Reeves, I love my country, the Chancellor of the Exchequer that's about as charismatic as Keir Starmer. She came on. I love my country. I'll never forget that.
I love my country. And when you have to justify loving your country and as a form of defence, you know that you've lost it. You've lost the people. You've lost the country.
Especially at a petrol station when a guy in high visibility trousers had just owned you. But
also, you know, yeah, it was a remarkable scene. And yeah, go on. Sorry, Joe.
Yes, 2 days ago when Nigel, you know, when they stand down as an MP, they're not allowed to just walk away. They have to go to this fictitious ceremonial job, the bailiff of this or the steward of that. So he put in to be the bailiff of something or other. So she took to Twitter, said, "Okay, I'll let Nigel Farage with this farce. I'll let Nigel Farage with this farce."
If he wants to spend his summer arguing with a bin, no, mate, he's going to spend his summer telling the people of Clacton why he should be their MP, and no one else had the guts to stand up against him.
Correct. And she never said naff all when the bloke in Makerfield, what's he called, Josh Simmons, did exactly the same protocol. He had to. He stood down and he became the leader of the 300th, or some other ridiculous ceremonial title. They did exactly the same protocol for him. It wasn't on the news. I saw it in 16 different news outlets on Facebook yesterday. There was nothing about Josh Simmons, and she never bothered to take to social media. So that tells you where the treatment of Anne Widdecombe, not even a minute's silence, not even a reference to her. This is the last day of...
they mocked the Reform Party, you know. I know.
They still saw it as an opportunity to have a dig at reform. So I look at it this way. I'm supporting the party that the government's afraid of, and that's all you need to know. That's the party. They can all come and go. They can all start new parties. They can all talk the big talk about how many people they're going to deport. You are going to be sunk when you get in there. Whoever wins the next election is going into a hostile environment that doesn't bloody well want you. Filled with civil service, 81,000 people work in Whitehall, civil service on pensions that are wrapped up tighter than a gnat's arse. And we will be struggling. we will be struggling to get legislation through, but it needs a strong person to do it. So all this talk about what they're going to do and what they're not going to do, these other parties, you're not going to do anything. You're not in a position to win anything. You haven't created anything. This is a movement of people. This is thousands and thousands of people behind reform. This isn't just Nigel Farage. Anybody who says that, and who are these lunatics that say he's part of the establishment?
I know.
The establishment wouldn't attack him.
I know, they've been attacking him for 30 years. He has been fighting the establishment. And you say a good point, because whenever I have an interview with a journalist, they're like, oh, well, you know, how are you going to get your mandate through? How are you going to beat the civil service? How are you going to beat the House of Lords? And it always strikes me. I'm like, it's called a democracy. So now you're saying that unelected civil servants, unelected members of the House of Lords are going to directly try and frustrate a democratic mandate. And that's acceptable. That seems acceptable to them. That's an acceptable outcome to politicians and journalists. Oh, you know, you'll get voted in, but you'll never be able to do anything because of unelected bodies. And I'm like, well, then they've got to go. You know, we fundamentally believe in democracy. If we have a mandate to do something, then we will move hell and high water to do that. And anyone who stands in our way who's not elected will have to go, I'm afraid. It's just the way it is. You can't frustrate democracy.
And the thing is, there's a man campaigning in Makerfield now, dressed up in a suit full of Union flags, which gives you the impression he's a nationalist and he wants civic nationalism. But he doesn't. He's a left-wing agitator, lying. He's just lying about Nigel. He says that Reform want to privatise the NHS. No, they don't. The bloody NHS has already been privatised, you dozy buggers. You've got outsourced food, you've got outsourced catering, you've got outsourced cleaning, you've got outsourced hospital beds in private hospitals, you've got surgeons being paid to come back in. This is already privatised. It's a badge. This is no reflection.
No, for sure. But I think what people are worried about, which is completely categorically untrue, it would always be free at the point of use. And it should be free to access it. My husband's American and you know, it scares the living daylights out of him if he gets ill in America. But in terms of the NHS, like my sister's a retired consultant in the NHS, my nephew's a doctor in the NHS, and my nieces. What I find is lacking is preventative measures. You know, we do not have a preventative program in the NHS. And there's an epidemic of women, 30 and 40-year-olds, who are getting bowel and breast cancer, yet you only get a mammogram at 50. A colonoscopy also is after 50. And I think that's too late. We need to focus more on a massive preventative measure. You know, you speak to these like very rich people, and I listen to podcasts, and they all get these like MRI scans to fully scan their body every year to see if there's anything so they catch it early. And I feel like preventative care, it really is for the rich, for the very rich. And it should be for the NHS. It's much cheaper to prevent than it is to treat.
Well, a friend of mine is just having a procedure that wasn't offered to her on the NHS. They don't offer it because of the cost of it. But she's paid for it privately, and it's worked. And it's, when I say cut corners, I don't mean health-wise, I mean it's cut timing. So she's back on her feet. And all that would happen you want a mixture of people being able to pay for health if they've got the money and they want to, and people who can't afford to do that need to be looked after. And anybody can see that a government that locks your healthcare down because of one virus is not fit to run a country. And the Labour Party agreed with it all. The Tories did it. Whoever thought of that in lockstep with the rest of the Western world was absolutely bloody bonkers. Bonkers.
I mean, my sister had a small non-aggressive tumour growing, and she had surgery, cancerous tumour, surgery December before lockdown. And after lockdown, she started having some pain in about February, March, and she emailed her doctor, and he said, you know, because you've had this surgery, it was in March, I'm not going to get you in for a scan, and I'm going to wait until June. And during those months, a non-aggressive tumour had decades of evolutionary growth, and it became stage 4 aggressive, spread to her bones. And people don't talk about the incidental deaths because of COVID, not just because of COVID. And then, as a stage 4 cancer patient, she broke one of her bones, and they put her in a ward where she contracted COVID. And you know, remember during COVID, it was during the 4th or 5th day that you really took a fall. So they released her on that day, she was fine. The 5th day, she went almost died, and they put her in intensive care. And June, I promise you, they called us about on 4 separate occasions during 2 or 3 months that she was in hospital, telling us she's about to die. We all put our hazmat suits on, we put our masks, crying, bawling our eyes out. And then my other sister, who's a retired NHS consultant, would point out, she's not about to die, you haven't drained her lungs. She's not about to die, you haven't done this. And every time that they called us telling us she's about to die, she wasn't. And it took my sister, who's a doctor, to call it out. And not only that, but they kept going to my sister and saying, what, and this is in Charing Cross Hospital, and I will shame them, saying, why do you not sign your DNAR? And my sister would say, you know what, I want to live. And when we would leave that room, that same consultant would go up to my sister and tell her, why do you want to live? You're stage 4, sign the DNAR, sign the DNAR. It got so bad at a point that we had to have a Zoom on her at all times because they also would not give her the level of oxygen that she needed. This was a tiny woman, she was very thin. And as you know, it caused very fast heart rate, as if you're sprinting. And they wouldn't give her the level of oxygen that she needed because she was stage 4. And we had to have a Zoom, we had to have a phone watching her 24 hours to make sure that she got adequate care, and we were on standby watching her. And nobody talks about how many people had to go through that, suffering because of stupid COVID decisions, and the people that didn't just die of COVID, but died as a result of COVID restrictions. And you're right. And where's the accountability for that? Zero. She passed away. She survived COVID, by the way, but she passed away because all that reduced her, resistance to it. And she was doing well on chemo. But anyway, I don't know how I digressed into that. But it's always, for me, it was, how dare they? I've paid into the NHS my whole life through taxes. My sister, who's a consultant, her daughter is a consultant now. We've dedicated so much of my family to the NHS, and then you go up to my sister when she needed oxygen and tell her, you will not get the next level. It was called a CPAP. You will not get it because you're stage 4. And we watched her suffer, desperate to breathe. And that's when I realised there's a problem.
Yeah, and the problem is it's run by people who are managing it badly. And
exactly.
What you need, the element of care has gone. You've got people in the NHS, 15,000 people a year who are trained in Britain from all backgrounds, not just white. I'm talking about white people, I'm talking about British people, trained for NHS frontline jobs are refused every year because
100%.
prefers to import staff from overseas that are cheaper. And then you get, they talk about Nigel Farage's 5 million. When are people going to see that the stuff that's going on legitimately via Parliament is sickening? Wes Streeting got nearly £10,000 a month income after he became the health minister from a company that supplies staff to the NHS. If that doesn't stink to you, it stinks to me.
Did he really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What company is that?
I can't remember that, but if you Google it, it'll come up.
Wow. Wes Streeting got £10,000 a month from a company. From a company that's related to health.
Yes, from a
when
company
he became health minister.
Staff to the NHS.
Wow.
And another donor in Leeds, a single individual donor donated £20 million to the Tory party when they were in government.
Oh, Hester, Mike, yeah, and then he got the NHS contracts, right?
NHS and prison contract, 400 million back. And I've tried to turn around and say to people, Nigel Farage's 5 million hasn't cost the taxpayer one bean.
No one's got a government contract as a result.
Yeah, a government contract, 400 million. There'll be about £150 million profit in that. We are funding private jets, we are funding lavish lifestyles, we are funding helicopters, and we are funding super yachts. That's what's going on with government contracts. These aren't people doing it for a song to help Britain, to make sure Britain gets the best and most cost-effective contract. They are milking it, and it's legal. That's the bit that gets me.
I know.
And that's what wants overhauling. Nigel Farage getting £5 million from a bloke who hasn't cost the taxpayer a penny is irrelevant to me. And I have 700,000 followers, and not one of them gives a shit about. Sorry, I should say that, should I?
No, it's fine.
Not one of them gives a toss about that. What they're bothered about is how money goes out of the tax system, and then into government contracts on whatever with huge profit margins, and we are fleeced. Unbelievable.
And if ever you wanted cash for influence or cash for contracts, just look at like you say, the Labour Party gave 138 million in government contracts to donors. Tories gave billions. I don't see that in the front page. Why can't I see an itinerary? I want to see an itinerary by the press. I want to know exactly which donor gave what and was awarded which government contract. Name and shame them. I want to know exactly what happened. How much did they give and what government contract did they get?
Yeah.
How about that, the Times, for a bit of an investigation for you? Do you think they'll do it?
Not only that, the story in the Times, written by a man who confesses to bloody despise Nigel Farage. You can't get much worse than that.
You're right. So the health secretary is overseeing the greatest reorganisation of the NHS in a generation, has accepted £372,000 from companies and individuals, with links to the private healthcare sector. And the money keeps coming in. Like you said, he gets £10,000 a month since he took office. Wow.
Yeah. I think he stood down as health minister, but nevertheless, that is a hefty...
But he was getting it when he was. But hang on, who's that guy? Is it Gabriel Pogren in the Times? Can we please have a detailed investigation on this? I think the public need to know.
Yeah, I keep putting it out there.
Let's see if he will.
You've got a housing minister that doesn't pay tax on a second home. You've got a health minister taking money legitimately. It's not doing anything wrong. That's the bit that's wrong.
Yeah.
Legitimately taking money from a company that supplies staff cheap to the NHS, which leaves 15,000 people in Britain fallow. They can't get jobs. Midwife bursaries cancelled. What the hell is that about? And then they wonder why maternity units are failing. It stinks.
It does stink, June, and you keep calling it out. How many subscribers do you have on YouTube? Massive.
On YouTube, about 90. On Facebook, about 380,000. And on Twitter, 250. But Twitter's a bit pointless at the moment.
It is. It's changed. But I see why. Keep following this amazing lady. She'll uncover the truth. Today, I learned something about the 10,000, and that is not in public knowledge. I mean, it hasn't come across my newspapers. Thank you so much, June, for coming on.
You're welcome.
Great to see you. Well, I think that's it for me, folks.
No, we're just doing a little handover.
I've got a handover.
We've got a super chat, Laila.
We've got a super chat. Let's go. Love a super chat. Super chat. Great show today. Loved all of it. Thank you, Polly. You're a legend. Thanks for the money. Oh, poor man. How can you have so many defenders on the pitch and 2 goals in a few minutes? What was he doing?
Laila, I'm still actually getting over the emotional process of it all. Actually,
I'm not over it.
No, I'm not sure I will be, because I literally took myself to bed after the game in a sulk, and then got up and came to where I am, which I shall reveal when the show starts in a minute, Laila. But no, I'm not over it yet. But we're going to digest it throughout the next hour.
Okay.
Mark will be with us. The Glyn Decks will be with us. We've got a couple of guests as well. Stay here for the football chat.
Thank you. And before I hand over, do you think we could have won it with a different strategy?
Potentially, yeah. Yeah, because, we went 1-0 up with 55 minutes gone, and then we just parked the bus.
You don't play defence with Messi for 55 minutes, for over an hour. I mean, it's Messi. You attack. Anyway.
As borne out with the result, Laila, so you're absolutely right.
Spain or Argentina?
Definitely Spain now. I should never support Argentina.
I've never been so pro-Spain winning in my life. There you go.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, Laila.
Great show. Bye. That's it from me, folks. See you next week.
Hi there. Edward Hughes here with your Thursday Bulletin. Keir Starmer marked the end of an era with an emotional final Prime Minister's questions yesterday, telling MPs, "This is the end of my political journey," before receiving a standing ovation. He paid tribute to his family and colleagues and pledged full support to his successor as Labour navigates its leadership transition, with Knob of the North Andy Burnham widely tipped for a bigger role. The murder of former MP Anne Widdecombe remains front and centre. Counter-terrorism police are investigating it as a targeted attack, and senior Reform UK figures are now receiving round-the-clock protection amid heightened threats to politicians. On the pitch, devastating scenes for England as Argentina fought back to win 2-1 in the World Cup semi-final, ending the Three Lions run despite strong showings from Jude Bellingham. International tensions continue with further developments in the US strikes on Iran. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Well, hello, World Cuppers and Common Sensors. Paul Cox here, standing in for Mark Littlewood, but only for part of the show today. As you can see, I'm not in my usual studio. Mark, again, is not in his studio. We are both in the same location for the first time since the beginning of the World Cup. We are at CPAC, Great Britain, and we are here negotiating with senior delegates, influential people, wealthy people, to get Mark fully off the hook and get this Panini scandal behind him. So we will be going to Mark very shortly. We might be able to see him now, actually. I mean, Pooch, I don't know if we've got any live footage of Mark whatsoever. Well, we're going to go with absolutely not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Glyn, the Glindex, in. I'm never without Glyn. He is always here. How you doing, Glyn?
I'm good, mate. How are you? I thought
okay.
I know it's a sad day, Coxie, but why are you dressed for a funeral?
Look, I had to blend in at CPAC, okay?
Yeah.
I have to act as if I'm someone influential in the Conservative environment. And I needed to do so. I'm doing this for Mark. I'm doing this to free Littlewood. I'm doing this to make sure that the Panini scandal is put behind us all. It's touched us all, hasn't it, Glyn?
It has told you that the charges will never stick. But I was going to put on a black shirt this morning, but I thought it looked too much like Diego Simeone, so I passed on that one. But anyway,
Well,
sad night.
Let's get into it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, behind all this presenter, hey, welcome everybody, is quite a sad person, I have to say.
Yes.
Last night's game really took the wind out of my sails. It felt like destiny was calling and England would be in the World Cup final, at least for the first time since 1966, Glyn. Before we go into a little bit more detail, just give me the lowdown of how you're feeling this morning.
I am sicker than a sick parrot in a rainforest full of sick parrots today. My belly is lower than a snake's. I'm gutted. I'm devastated. I'm bereft. But I think I have a plan. Luke, can we take a look at image 1? Yeah, for Argentina, right? Here's the plan. Farage resigns and we get to rerun the game again. What do you reckon?
Look, if anyone can, Argentina can. That would be great. I mean, do you know what, though? I don't know if it would be great. I'm a big fan of the game was played, we lost the game, and we're out the competition. That there was shenanigans that went on. There was great promise at the beginning of the game. And the first half started, and it was a brawl. It was literally a brawl. England couldn't get any rhythm. The Argentinians were doing all sorts of S-housery off the ball. England never managed to make more than 2 or 3 passes before a heavy tackle was put in. There was no yellow card until about the 25th, 26th minute. And that was given to an England player, Anderson.
Yeah,
which blew all of our minds. But within that, I think that we look like technically the better team. We look like the team on top. And the promise and the hope was still there, Glyn, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think despite the choppy waters of the first half, we were the only ones trying to play football in the first half. And we took it to them. We're taking it to the world champions, remember, for an hour. And sadly, then it all got a bit messy. Sorry, I had to do that one, but it did. And then it got a bit.
I haven't got any cards. I can't. There's the back of my phone.
It got a bit messy. Then it got a bit Southgatey, didn't it? Bringing all those defenders on. I really couldn't understand that. But I don't know. I tell you what, we're down today, obviously. But I wonder how the rest of the nation's feeling. I always think a good barometer of that. Have a look at the newspapers. So could we call up image 2, please? Look at that. End of the world. Fantastic shot. I used to earn a living doing this kind of stuff, laying out pages and coming up with headlines like that. But that really sums up the tournament in just one image and how empty we feel all around the country, don't you think?
Yeah, look, I'm in the denial part of the grief cycle at the moment. I checked out of the WhatsApp groups we were in last night. I it just said, I don't like football anymore, guys. I'm going to sleep. And then when I woke up this morning, I did everything I could to avoid seeing anything. So I've not seen that front page. Excellent photograph, by the way. But how we all felt. I mean, please do put in the comments, by the way, if you have been affected by this. There's only so much Glyn and I can do. But, but you know, if you're feeling sad, do let us know, because we are both feeling incredibly sad. Look, half time came and went. And it felt like we were on the up. We didn't see any changes. No changes from Argentina. No changes from the England manager. And then on 55 minutes, and Anthony Gordon, bang, great goal. We came down the right-hand side. Great bit of play. Ball across the box like we hadn't seen in the first half. And the statistic that I wanted to give everybody was it was the first World Cup game since 1966 where there had been no shot on target in the first 30 minutes of the game. The first shot on target was deemed to have been the header from the corner from John Stones on 33 minutes, and that kind of hit his head and didn't go on target. So in terms of shots on target in the first half, it was abysmal. But 55 minutes, Anthony Gordon scores a great goal.
Yeah, well, they were more abysmal than us during that 55 minutes. You know, they were just trying to knock us off our stride. And for the goal, beautifully created, Declan Rice, Rodgers again, great finish by Gordon. And then you think, finally, we're going to break this hoodoo. And then what happened? Like a mass psychosis. Why retreat? Laila just said it. And I don't think Laila's a football fan particularly, but she's absolutely, it was clear as day. If you're going to sit back and let Messi mess around with you, you're going to lose. And we'd seen it in previous games. So that was really, really distressing, I thought.
It was, and it's worth mentioning because we after 55, literally, there was a bit of forward play, a bit of aggressive attacking play in that 55th, 56th minute. Yeah. We looked like we might have even got another goal. Jude Bellingham had a slight sort of half chance not long after the first goal. But then we retreated into our own half. Now, this happens quite a lot in particularly big games, big FA Cup games, the finals, semi-finals of the World Cup. And it's very difficult because unless you get your players forward, you cannot get out of your half. Harry Kane was unable to get forward. Jude Bellingham was unable to get forward. We didn't move forward. But then the RGs made substitutions. Before we even made substitutions, they brought on Martinez, they brought on De Paul. And these guys, who I'm not that familiar with, Martinez more than De Paul, I suppose, but these guys really brought something extra to the game. And we looked in serious trouble, Glenn.
Yeah, I think that was partly, and I don't want to be wise after the event here, but Declan Rice, I love him. He's a fantastic player, but he wasn't even fully fit last night. You could tell because he just wasn't, swallowing up the yards in the way he does. And then we had no one really to turn to do a like for like. And I'm going, what's the point of having Kobe Mainoo in the squad, who is absolutely a fantastic ball retainer at the Euros, played right the way through to the final, had 96% ball retention or pass completion. Not a spectacular player, but when you need a cool head and someone who can work it up to your forward line, such as it was, but we didn't have anyone to play it up to in the end because we kept putting bloody defenders on. It seemed to make no sense to me. Why have Jordan Henderson in the squad? I know he broke his wrist, but why was he there? If you wanted him as a good tourist, just have him on the training squad and have Adam Wharton there. It would have killed to have Adam Wharton on the pitch after 60 minutes last night. So I think there are some serious questions for Tuchel. I know he's renewed his contract, but what do you reckon? What do you think about his future? Do you think he should stand down, or do you think we got as far as we should?
I don't think he should stand down. I think you have to look at the tournament as a whole. England looked incredibly promising. That said, those substitutions all turned out to be actually very bad decisions. We brought on a whole bunch of defenders at the same time as the Argentinians brought on a whole bunch of strikers.
Concert, Byrne and O'Reilly.
No Saka. Eze was there. Saka and Eze are available. I'm going to talk to our first guest a little bit about that. But we could have done better. We should have been more aggressive in attack after we scored our first goal. We didn't need to sit back on 55, 60 minutes. I know that worked against Croatia. I know that worked against Mexico. I know it worked to some degree against the Norwegians. But the Argentinians have seeded 1 in the world. And I think last night, even though for large periods of that game I thought that England were on top and tactically and technically better, they came good. The commentators kept saying they will come good. Statistically, they come good. The data showed
just
that.
keep doing
and
it
they
to the
did. And we
tournament.
didn't have an answer, Glenn.
I mean, you remember Jurgen Klopp's phrase, mentality monsters. They've got it in absolute spades. They've got really good players, but they're street fighters. They just won't lay down. They've showed it right through the competition. I think Tuchel was wrong. And we have to say, there's a thin line between love and hate on this. It was only 5 minutes from achieving it. And we would have all been praising him to the hills this morning. But you do go, it was an awfully long time to survive from, what was it, 70 minutes, another 20 minutes plus injury time to go to start just having massed defensive ranks. You're not going to soak up that pressure from a team of that quality. And something that dismays me as well is Messi is so good. What are the odds against him being in the next tournament, even at 45, because he walks around?
Yeah, you said this in our little WhatsApp chat last night. I thought it was very interesting take, the Glendex, because you're right. I mean, I think he's 38, 39 right now. He'll be, 43 maybe
42,
at the next
43.
one. But when you're walking for 70% of the game and you're
standing still the rest of it.
Exactly. Look, we've had some messages, and they've been 50-50. So people are saying, I think it was David, I think, who said that Tuchel should be sacked because he was essentially tactically inept. I don't agree with that on the basis of the whole tournament. And he made some exceptionally good substitutions in games 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the semi-final, he did get it wrong. He's held his hands up and said that's the case. The trouble is, at this level of elite sport, it's so fine. So we are now out of the World Cup, having been 5 minutes away from a World Cup final. And let's not beat around the bush here. Had we got to a World Cup final, the pressure would have been off. Having got to the World Cup, that would have just, I think, for many England fans, me included, that would have been a fantastic achievement, and we could have put the ghost of '66 to bed and said, that's enough. The children growing up now wouldn't have had all this 60 years of hurt, or 30 years it was when the song first came out. They would have had something to celebrate.
64 years of hate now, of hurt.
Hate, yeah. I mean, hate's probably more like it at times.
That's for Argentina, I think, but... I don't think he should go. I mean, someone just asked, I think, from our team, but who would replace him? And I'm not sure there's another elite manager around that, apart from Klopp, who I think is about to take the Germany role. So I think you've got to give him another chance. But I am braced for another disappointment in 2 years' time at the Euros. We'll get to the final. We're hosting the damn thing. But I think it'll be rinse and repeat. I mean, what to get it in perspective, I mean, this has ended up on par. We are 4th in the world. We're probably going to end up 4th in the tournament. I don't think we'll do very well against France at the weekend. It depends who he picks. But I can't see France playing as badly again as they did. But we'll probably talk about that game later in the show. But for me, sad, but we'll always have Mexico. We stopped Haaland scoring. There were some real highlights in the competition. I'm sad we only played in moments rather than 90 minutes. Or 70 minutes of the game.
I think we're going to go to our first guest very soon, just to wrap this little section up, because we did need this debrief, even just for ourselves, for our own mental health.
Good therapy.
I think that we will look back on this tournament and think it was an opportunity missed, but it was also great fun as well. Those of us that have watched many tournaments know that the tournaments that we've been watching since 2018 have been the exception to the rule. Progressing to semi-finals, progressing to finals, being in real contention, looking like we could get through games. That just hasn't been the case. Even with the superstars of the 2000s and 2010s, even 1990. I think Littlewood said in the chat last night that was more of a novelty getting to the semi-final in 1990. We felt lucky to be there.
It depends on your perspective. Paul, I'm old enough to have seen us win in '66, and I wanted to see us win again before I bloody croak. So it's getting more and more desperate.
I hope we do. I I hope you don't croak it, Glyn. Although I have news for you, one day you will. Just sorry
It's a bit of a
sorry to
surprise,
be the
that.
one to tell you. Yeah. Imagine if this is the first time you found out that everyone had kept it from you. I was like, Glyn, you're not going to live forever. Oh my God. But there's still Euros and there's still a World Cup in 4 years. So Glyn, we're going to leave it there. I'm going to go to our first guest now. Thanks ever so much, Glyn.
See you in a
We'll be
bit.
back with
See
you
in a bit.
very shortly. Oh, right. Okay. So our first guest today is Paul Scanelli. Are you there, Paul? Paul, how you
Hello,
doing?
buddy. How you doing?
How
You
you
okay?
doing? Yeah, good. So you and I have never directly spoke before, but I've seen you on this show, and Mark would be here. But as you're aware, we're at CPAC. We're negotiating the final stages of his freedom from the Panini scandal. It is not illegal to take Panini stickers over any border, and Mark is proving that. He's on stage now fighting for his freedom. However, what did you make of
That's
last
good.
night's game, mate?
Yeah, like everybody and like you guys have been talking, just gutted, really. I mean, it's inexcusable, I think, the way that we went in that last sort of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and the tactics that the manager brought in. And I was on the show with Mark, sort of singing his praises after Mexico, but I just can't work out how that was a good idea to sit so deep, keep everyone in the 18-yard box, not even going out wide to close people down, not closing the shots down. We were just basically allowing them to come onto us, and it was just, and the substitutions were just mad, And I think the way that it's ended, I just can't see how he can stay in the job. I just can't see how you can feel confident in him going into the next tournament. And you were just saying about, which manager's available. There's one that stands out a mile. As much as I'm a big Arsenal fan and I'm not a fan of him, but Pep is the man that maybe in sort of 6 months, a year of him having a break, get him involved with England. And I think he would take the job. And I think Pep would never have allowed England to play like that in that last 15 minutes. Never. We should have had pace up front where they had something to worry about, not just us sitting back worrying about them. They needed to still worry about us. And, like Madueke should have come on, leave Gordon on. Just those, Watkins could have come on for Kane. What did Kane do in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes? Have an out ball where they've actually got to worry about us. And it was a shame that it was a good tournament. I think in the end he picked a reasonable, clever squad because he went with more sort of committed players and there was a real good team morale. Although that might have been hurt a little bit with that interview after the Mexico, what was it? Not the Mexico game, the last game.
Norway.
I didn't like that. The ITV guy, he kind of stirred the pot a bit with Bellingham and, I don't know. But I just think that last sort of 10, 15 minutes, we had a brilliant opportunity and the manager is fully responsible for just really just going, I don't know what he was doing. It was so negative. And, they're not, I don't even think this is an amazing Argentina team. They've got some great players. But you give Messi time and space, he's going to do something. And the same goes for Enzo or other players. The warning signs were there literally before the goals. There was shots hitting post bars. It was all there. And he just continued to let it happen. And obviously we got what we deserved, I suppose.
Yeah, look.
You've got all my stuff.
Yeah, I think you're echoing what a lot of the followers of this show are thinking and saying. You mentioned Pep. I think that's a great shout. I've heard that he's being linked with Italy. So we might have missed the boat there because
No, he'll choose England. He'll choose England over Italy all day. He'll choose England. I mean, it's his.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to think. I mean, I'm a Portsmouth fan, so what do I know about Premier League football? Not since 2011, anyway. But yeah. And by the way, I know you're an Arsenal fan, aren't you, Paul? There were two players that could have come on last night that could have made a difference, arguably. What do you make about Saka not coming on? What do you make about Eze not coming on?
Well, again, I think Mark had me on twice, and the first time I was talking about Saka just shouldn't have been. He shouldn't have even come to this tournament. He's just not fit. The boy needs a break, and it showed it in that game. I mean, if a fit Saka or even a remotely fit Saka, he's going to play that game, isn't he? He's at least going to come on. So it showed that he just was. He wasn't fit. He didn't really have much in the tournament he offered. So it goes down as a bad pick, same as Henderson. What was the point of Henderson? It was just pointless. There must have been other players that could have added a little something. I mean, as an Arsenal fan, I was kind of saying, well, what about Dowman? I know that he only played a little bit for Arsenal, but he has something different that we don't have. And, you know, I'd rather players like that than just players that are just there that aren't fit. You know, as an Arsenal fan, I'm worried, obviously, with the new season because we got players dropping off all over the place. You know,
Yeah.
Rice looks done, Saka's done, you know, Saliba's done. So I don't know what's going to happen to us. But
That's an interesting point. That's an interesting point because these players now, they don't have a tremendous amount of rest. So these tournaments take it out. They've got to stay there till Saturday because they've got to play this, what they're calling the bronze game now, which is ridiculous, third, fourth place playoff. I don't even know. I mean, I don't remember watching it when we got to the semi-finals in 2018. I will watch it. I'm saying now I probably won't watch it, but I feel like I don't want to watch it right now. I feel like it's the last thing I want to do. But my point is, these players have got to probably play in that. Hopefully Rice won't. I'm not sure Rice should have been on the pitch yesterday. He's clearly not been well. He wasn't even beating the first man with his corners, and that's really unlike him. But you were right about there'll be plenty of Premier League managers looking at this going, well, cheers for that. It's okay if you get to the final, but now I've got these knackered players that I've got to try and rehabilitate back in. They were going to start their pre-season probably later than everybody else.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you know, for us, but then like other clubs, I suppose as well. But I mean, that Mainu should have had a bit more play, you know, a bit more time. He didn't really utilise the sort of squad enough, but I don't think he picked a great squad. I think there was some players that should have been part of it. I mean, I like Eze. I'm a big fan of Eze, but would Gibbs White have been better maybe than Eze? I mean, Eze didn't really get a look in. You know, someone like Gibbs White had an amazing season. You know, Palmer obviously was a bit of a shock. So
Yeah,
yeah,
one of our viewers, Anne Thomas, just said it was a scandal basically leaving Gibbs White out, and I think it's a great point. Look, tell me something. Mark tells me you live in Spain, or you're in Spain.
I'm in Spain now.
He
Yeah,
also tells me that you are next to an Argentinian restaurant. Is that true?
I am. So I run a little coffee shop in Corralejo in Fuerteventura, and literally next to our shop is an empanada shop, Argentina empanada shop.
No way.
So the boys have had great fun with me this morning. I've obviously I'm a little bit hungover. I'm a little jaded. We do the best coffee on the island, so that's quite nice. I can sit and have a nice coffee. But the guys next door have enjoyed coming in at me this morning and giving it to me. But you know, which I was planning to. I honestly thought we'd win. I am shocked because I
Yes.
really believed we would win. And I made sure I told them that yesterday, and I told everyone I felt we would win the game. And I think if we had a better tactics and a better manager in that last 15 minutes, someone with a bit of balls or just kept calm, I think we would have won that game. I think it was purely because we allowed them to do it. And that is what's annoyed me. You know, I mean, Arteta gets a lot of stick being negative, but he's never as negative as that. You know, that we played like we had 10 men. I just can't work it out still. It was like, it's such a shame because it was a brilliant opportunity. But you know, yeah, they enjoyed giving me plenty of stick. And in fairness, one thing I would say about the Argentinians, I do feel like being in the town here, so many of them, they're so patriotic. That it means so much to them, you know. And you feel like maybe that's the same with the players. You know what I mean? It's like it's their everything. It's like a mentality thing where they're just so much more up for it than. In a way, I'm England, but I'm looking, thinking, oh God, you know, Declan's going to get injured, Saka's going to get injured. I'm thinking of my Arsenal head, you know, whereas these guys are just all about their country and patriotic, and so yeah, it's that got them through a bit as well.
Yeah, look, Paul, we're going to have to wrap up in a second. I feel your grief, my friend. Look, I genuinely, for the first, I'm not sure. I think you're probably a bit younger than me, Paul. I'm 46. I've seen a few World Cups now, but this is probably the first one where I thought we're not fortunate to be here. We deserve to be here, and we should be in that final. And I went through nearly every minute of that game until probably the first Argentinian goal went in last night, thinking, yeah, we're going to be all right still. But the trouble was that the substitutions just hamstrung us. That was it. We were snookered. What could we do after that? Kane wasn't in the game, couldn't get the ball forward. But Paul, please give a shout out to your coffee shop again, mate. There'll be lots of people going on holiday very soon.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, Cafe Barista in Corralejo. So yeah, it's
lovely.
Best breakfast, best coffee.
Great to see you, Paul.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of your day,
Thanks
mate.
a lot, mate.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Goodbye. Look, there's a lot of grief going on, but I've got some good news for you right now. Mark Littlewood, fresh from negotiations at CPAC for his freedom and future, should now be available to talk. Are you there, Mark?
I'm here. Can you hear me, Paul?
Well, I can hear you, mate. Please do give us the latest on the ongoing talks about your freedom and this scandal.
Yeah, well, it was very important, to meet with fellow Conservatives here at the CPAC conference. There's hundreds of them here building a new movement. And, I wanted to make a range of points, Paul, but as you know, I felt that I had to stand up for the rights of Panini sticker collectors, and I think there was universal acclaim for that in the room. We touched on some other minor issues as well, like completely resetting the British Constitution, repealing the Human Rights Act, sorting out immigration, getting rid of HS2, fixing our legal system. But, I felt the Panini thing had to be mentioned. So on a bleak day for English football, I'm taking a little bit of solace from that, Coxie. How's your post-mortem gone so far? I see you're dressed for a funeral, mate.
Yes, I am. You're not the first to say that. The Glindex has been at me with the bants. Of all people, the Glindex has been at me with the bants. Look, we talked about the promise. We talked about the first half and the S-housery from Argentina. We talked about how in the second half, when we scored the goal, we didn't go with the momentum, and the substitutes ultimately made the difference. We went deep. Paul went deep too. But there's still plenty to discuss, Mark. There's loads of things to discuss. I think we could be talking about Tuchel's future a bit more. We can talk about I would love to see your opinion on that. Glyn seemed to be leaning towards getting rid of Tuchel, but maybe he's not. But I'll tell you who was. Signelli was definitely Tuchel out, no good. I don't agree with that, Mark. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm not with that. Look, but in my judgment, he got his tactics badly wrong, didn't he? And from probably the 72nd minute, that's when he took Gordon off for Dan Burns. Have I got that right? So he shoved everything on red, absolutely everything to protect a 1-0 lead. And we were 5 minutes of normal time away from doing that. Now, I think he got that call wrong. I think he went over defensive. There was obviously no plan B. Once Argentina had equalised, what was our best hope? To hang on for penalties, I guess. We were never going to score a goal. And here's a shocking statistic for you. One of our viewers, Francis, sent this to me on X. So I have no reason to believe it's anything other than complete common sense and truth. From the moment England scored, after Anthony Gordon's goal, which was, minute 54, if I remember rightly, look at the possession stats. From that time to the end of the game, the possession stats were 88% Argentina, 12% England. You are not going to be able to keep a team out if you are that much under the cosh. So I think Tuchel doubled, quadrupled down on the trying to protect the 1-0, and that turned out to be an error. But look, it's precious little consolation, right? But we were 5 minutes of normal time away from a World Cup final. I think he has unified the team to some considerable degree. Let's be honest, we probably weren't quite good enough to win the World Cup, right? I mean, we would have been underdogs if we got through against Spain. There's more work to be done. But I think to get rid of him after getting to the semi-final is just a bit trigger happy, right?
Yeah, look, Glindex and I were having the conversation, and I said that getting through to the final, the pressure would have been off. No expectation for us to beat Spain, really. And had we beaten Spain, great thing. Also, it would have exercised the ghost of 66, which has hung over us all, except Glyn, because 66 was actually the World Cup that he celebrated his 35th birthday. But for many of us, it's just been, we're fed up of singing football's coming home. We're fed up of talking about 30, 40, 60 years of hurt. We just won one game and we're 5 minutes away from it. But look, lads, we're going to come back after the news. We're going to go to the news now, and we'll come back and digest this even further. I know there's plenty more to say. Thanks both. I'll see you in a minute. Let's go to the news, shall we? Let's see what Edward's got to say.
Hi there. Edward Hughes here with your Thursday Bulletin. Keir Starmer marked the end of an era with an emotional final Prime Minister's questions yesterday, telling MPs, "This is the end of my political journey," before receiving a standing ovation. He paid tribute to his family and colleagues and pledged full support to his successor as Labour navigates its leadership transition, with Knob of the North Andy Burnham widely tipped for a bigger role. The murder of former MP Anne Widdecombe remains front and centre. counter-terrorism police are investigating it as a targeted attack, and senior Reform UK figures are now receiving round-the-clock protection amid heightened threats to politicians. On the pitch, devastating scenes for England as Argentina fought back to win 2-1 in the World Cup semi-final, ending the Three Lions run despite strong showings from Jude Bellingham. International tensions continue with further developments in the US strikes on Iran. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Laters, Tigers, indeed. I'm not sure what he was dressed for there. Maybe some sort of deal. Shenanigans deal, I say. But we're back, and I'm going to bring the Glindex and I'm going to bring the Littlewood back on board as well. Let's get those two in shot. Here we go. Look, Mark's moved. Where are you now, Mark?
I've made it to Westminster, Coxie.
Of course.
My Learjet's working again, so I've just been able to make it to Westminster during that news break. Look, I was going to ask you guys a bit about what do you think about the third, fourth place match. I've seen some people in the chat saying, what is the point of the third, fourth place match? But I've got a little bit of a take on that in the moment about, I think you guys are going to be surprised about how I'm spending my Saturday night, because I'm a pretty loyal fan, as you know. But what do you think about this? Is it worth playing a game for third place? Is it a farce? Or is it a nice way to add in an extra game for the teams who've got to the semis but haven't quite made it? What's your take, guys?
Well, I think it's a bit like no one goes away empty-handed in some ways. But I think there are plus points as well. Excuse me. If a small nation gets to the third and fourth place rather than a par nation, somebody like Morocco last time out, I think that's a big deal for them rather than us being a bit jaded about, oh, we're going to finish third or fourth. Excuse me. As it happens, these games also tend to be high scoring. They nearly always average 3 or 4 goals. So, the pressure's off. The players let the hair down a bit. And they can be quite entertaining games with not much at stake. And some players have actually sealed their golden boot win by scoring in the third and fourth place. So I guess, they'd think it was justified to do it. So I think there are a few points in favour of it, although I'm not mad for it myself. What about you, Coxie?
Well, actually, that's a really interesting point with regards to the Golden Boot. It completely slipped my mind. Harry Kane sits on 6 because for a good 60 minutes yesterday, he didn't actually get into the half of the pitch where the opposing goal was, which makes it very difficult to score unless you're David Beckham in 1997, of course. But I just said to Paul Sanelli before I came back to you guys, the way I feel now, kind of petulantly, I think I'm not going to watch that game. But let me tell you, I'm going to watch that game. I'm going to hope that we beat France. I don't like France. I didn't like France before the game. I don't like France now. We weren't one of the minnows. This is the thing about England now. We're no longer one of those, we should be glad to be there. And I talked about what you said earlier, Mark, with regards to in 1990 making the semi-final. It was a novelty. We felt like we'd really pushed our way to about as far as we could get in this particular competition. We deserve to be in that final. We were beat fair and square yesterday. I don't want any sort of talk of, they held up the Malvinas flag and therefore they should be discounted out. I don't want any of that. In the same way as I didn't really want Southampton to be taken out of that playoff final. As much as I hate them, I love the game. They won the game. Last night, Argentina won the game. I will be watching the third place playoff. I hope that we win it. They're calling it the bronze match, which is too American. This whole thing's gone slightly too American. I don't think. Mark, what do you make of the bronze game? What do you make of all that nonsense?
Well, yeah, no, I hate that. That sort of branding is complete nonsense. But listen, I've made a big decision, Glindex and Coxie. I've made a really big decision. And my really big decision is that I've watched now like 200 hours of football on television. And it's high time, I think, I took in a live match again. There is something about watching football live in the stadium, which is just a different, more intense experience. So, you know what? I'm a bit disappointed, but on Saturday, I'm going to get my Learjet and I'm going to do just that. I'm going to go and watch football live. The match is in Miami, I believe. I don't think, is that right, for the third place playoff? But anyway... So, I'll be watching live football in the stadium on Saturday night, guys. But if you pull up image 5, this is actually the game I'm going for. at the mighty Silver Lake Stadium. Eastleigh, the Spitfires against Southampton, against the Saints. Kickoff 9:45. Be there. I've already bought my ticket. Loads of Saints fans will be there, and this is becoming a bit of an historic rivalry, Paul, between the two biggest teams in Hampshire, Eastleigh, the Spitfires, and Southampton. And there's quite a history behind it. If you pull up image number 6. It's becoming, there you go. There's our full history. Eastleigh, 0 wins, no draws. Southampton, 2 wins. And I can even give you those 2 results if you pull up image number 7. First time we played Eastleigh, we beat them 7-1. A bit more of a disappointing 2-1 win when we played them last year. So this is the grudge game in Hampshire now, Cox. What do you make of that? I'll be there on Saturday night. My hope is that if the Saints put the Spitfires to bed pretty early, I'll still be able to stay at the stadium and watch the 3rd, 4th place playoff final, not the bronze bloody match, the 3rd, 4th place playoff final. And I hope to find that on the screen. But for me, some small consolation, live football in a stadium is back this Saturday night.
Nick Nab says Eastleigh for the win.
Look, actually, last night when I said I don't like football anymore and I was openly crying on the WhatsApp group, Mark did invite me to go to that game, and I just assumed it was Mark and his humour and wit. But turns out it might have actually been Mark trying to reach out and the olive branch of peace across Hampshire. I just missed it. So we're in for another 100 years of hate between Portsmouth and Southampton. That was the moment that things could have changed, but it's not going to be the case. So the hate will continue. I'm not sure Eastleigh are the second biggest team in Hampshire. I believe that is Havant and Waterlooville, most local team. They've got much further than Eastleigh have ever got in the FA Cup, remembering that they got to 3rd round proper. That's how we say it on this channel, 3rd round proper against Liverpool in what I think was 2011, and actually managed to go, I think, 1-1 at one point. So I think you'll find that statistically it goes Portsmouth at the top with all their FA Cup wins and appearances, then Havant and Waterlooville, then Eastleigh, then Southampton. I think that's
so you think Eastleigh versus Saints is indeed the 3rd, 4th place playoff on Saturday night? Just for the best team in Hampshire, you're arguing, rather than the best team in the world, right? Well, that adds a little extra spice to that titanic match at the Silver Lake on Saturday evening, Paul. Thanks for clearing that up statistically for me. I'm forever in your debt. I've got to ask you, mate, are you actually in our secret underground Westminster studio at the moment? I think you are, aren't you?
I am in a very secret studio. I can't say exactly where I am. I told people that I was here supporting you at SIGPAC, but of course, that's not where I am. I have to keep my movements very secret. I'm in a secret location. I shall not say where it is, but I am just making sure the final signatories are signing off on that pact that you've agreed at CPAC to make sure Panini stickers are never, ever seen as contraband again, and we never have the injustice that you had to face, particularly when they ran out of champagne on your private jet back from Mallorca. That should never happen again either, Mark.
Yeah, I'm with you on that appeal to justice. But Coxie, I'm going to tell you something. I think I know where your secret World Cuppa studio is, and you can see where I'm at, very recognisably in London SW1. And I think I know the code to break in to your deep underground base and find you. I'm going to try and do that in the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Certainly, if you can, Mark, but feel free to try.
I'm going to give it a go.
Let's just have a chat with me and Glenn then for a sec before we do anything else. Because Glenn, you said earlier that we weren't going to do well at Euro 2028. I mean, by the way, saying things like the year 2028 sounds mental anyway, doesn't it? There will be, it does. It feels like we should be playing in hover boots on the moon. But believe it or not, it's likely to be played on Earth. Do you really think we've got no chance? I mean, you talked about, you said we've got no chance. We're just going to get to the final and lose. That sounds like a good chance to me.
That's what I think will happen. I'll tell you what, though, while we were talking about the 3rd and 4th, something we didn't consider is And, you know, not all fans have got Lear jets like Mark, right? So they've got to schlep back down to Miami now if they want to see the game. And the players have got to have another 3-hour flight under the belt there and back. So the wear and tear on them for this game, it puts a big question mark against it, I think. And God knows the fans have been gouged enough, haven't they? Maybe they don't want to come home. Maybe they're going, I'm spending 20 grand, so I'll spend my last 2 grand on this bit. But it seems an enormous drain on them. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, it is, isn't it, a bit? I was thinking to myself this morning, well, at least the players get to go home, maybe catch up with the wags. But none of that. Down to Miami, got to play another game. Most of them wishing they weren't there. In fact, all 22 players on the pitch, I assume we're going to start with Tony up front. Although, as Mark rightly pointed out, you know, there's still, well, actually it was you, but I like to give all credit to Mark because he's in charge.
He takes it anyway.
But he does take it anyway. Just as well he can't hear us, Glyn. If he can
it's
hear
his
us
name
now,
above the lights. We're just his humble servants.
But yes, Harry Kane could still get that golden. But I'm hearing a rattle at my door. I'm in a secret bunker. I think it's probably just a huge beaver-sized rat. But it's Mark Littlewood. He has managed to get into my secret
Let the dogs
bunker.
out.
Oh my God!
Easy. It is as easy to unlock as the Portsmouth defence. Extraordinary. Can't believe you gave me that amount of time at the back.
How did
Sliced you open in one
you guess the
easy
code?
pass,
It was
Scott.
1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how you guessed that, Mark. I don't even know if this is going to work. Hopefully this is working for the video. This is the first time I've ever been in the same room as Mark Littlewood as well. It's incredible. Normally we're kept apart because of the Hampshire rivalry. But, you know, on a day where we're all feeling a bit sad, it seems to be the best thing for us all to do. Are we going to go to the Toby Young interview today, Mark, or are we?
Yeah, I think we should. I had a really good chat with Toby, and he's neutral as far as we're concerned because he's QPR.
Oh, yes.
So why don't we see my catch up with Toby?
Let's go for
where we correctly predicted that England would lose to Argentina.
Classic Toby. Over to the interview with Lord
I'm off
Toby
to the bar. I've now got another great guest for you on World Cuppa Live, on UK Live Online. I'm delighted to be joined by Lord Toby Young, the mastermind behind the Free Speech Union, football fanatic, Queen's Park Rangers supporter. Toby, bleak day for English football after all of the hope. Football's more about pain than glory, isn't it?
It is. And I sometimes slightly resent these Johnny-come-lately England fans because England always do quite well now in these international tournaments, so they don't have to go through the pain of watching, you know, a team go out in the first round of the Carabao Cup. So you sort of feel like their enjoyment is slightly undeserved. Where were you on the rainy Tuesday night when? But no, it's always hugely exciting. I enjoy the kind of national hysteria, and yeah, it's disappointing that we didn't in the end.
Yeah, it always seems to be close, but no cigar for England. Bleak times. But look, you're a serious man, Toby. I want to focus on a serious issue. We take football dead seriously on my World Cup show. And you sent me this intriguing message, and we've been, in every episode so far, we've been looking at the interface between football, politics, money, culture. How should we think about football in our society? Like, for folk like you and I, it takes up a lot of our time, takes up a lot of our money. It's something that we talk about a lot, we're passionate about. But should we just hermetically seal it? It's just a thing that we're interested in. Could just as easily be sort of stamp collecting or science fiction. Or how do you place football in society? To my mind, it's my hobby that I feel has the most impact and the most interface with politics and culture. But am I just overstating that because I'm a football fanatic?
Well, like you, it's really my only hobby. And so I get pretty excited about football too. And sometimes sort of feel I have to rationalize my obsession with it to members of my family, my peer group. And I think, like you, I am sometimes guilty of overstating its kind of national significance. And I do think that football is downstream of politics, and people do exaggerate the political impact, you know, football has. And I guess typically, you know, when Les Bleus were suddenly a kind of multiracial team in 1998, everyone talked about this healing divisions within French society. And France would now become a more racially harmonious, integrated society because Les Bleus were modeling, people getting along from different cultures, different backgrounds. And 2 years later, Marine Le Pen came second in the French presidential election. It didn't seem to kind of trigger any kind of new era of peace and harmony between the different multiracial groups that make up French society. And I think the same is true of England under Gareth Southgate. I mean, Southgate almost conducted himself like a politician. And I remember hearing a rumor that some of his speeches, some of his statements were actually written by Alistair Campbell. And he very much talked about the England team as though they could have a real impact, particularly on how men conducted themselves. And that somehow if the members of the England football setup could conduct themselves in a kind of grown-up, mature, tolerant, respectful way, that would somehow address long-running problems of toxic masculinity, that they could somehow role model behavior which the rest of the nation, particularly young men, would then take up. And I don't think there's much evidence that that's happened. The manosphere still exists. So I do think that people involved in football and pundits tend to exaggerate the impact football teams and how teams conduct themselves at this international level, the impact they can have. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a bit.
Yeah, I suppose that's right. So you're not wholly with Bill Shankly that it's not a matter of life and death. It's more important than that, I guess. If that's true, why do you think historically politicians have gone to ridiculous lengths to try and ensure that their football team performs well, and to share in the glory of that? I mean, look, I think none of this has been conclusively proven, but 1970 Argentina was considered to be of great assistance to the military junta running Argentina at the time. The whole country was in, rack and ruin, but they could point to winning their first World Cup in 1978. There's a lot of suggestions that a game against Peru was fixed to allow Argentina to get through on goal difference. You can go back to Mussolini, you can go back to Franco, East Germany beating West Germany in a group stage game in 1974 was sort of triumph of communism over the Western capitalist West. I mean, why does everybody, if it doesn't have the reverberations and impact that you're somewhat sceptical about, why do politicians of all stripes, democratic, authoritarian, Western, South American, attach themselves to this so much, as if it is some representation of wider society rather than just 22 men on a pitch kicking around a spherical piece of leather?
I think politicians by nature leave no stone unturned when it comes to shoring up their support, particularly in democracies. And it always suits prime ministers to try and wrap themselves in the England flag, take some of the credit, share in some of the glory for England's victories. And maybe if England actually win a tournament, I mean, the evidence base is pretty thin, Mark. We've only won one once. Maybe it did have, there was some small benefit to what Harold Wilson. But it remains, I mean, let's suppose,
let's say we win the Euros in 2 years' time, we win the World Cup 3 times in a row. Does it really matter? I mean, would you prefer our politicians, Toby? I can remember this about Paddy Ashdown, right? He was quite an action man, but he admitted to having absolutely no interest in football, right? He was the member of parliament for Yeovil, so he said, look, I know Yeovil Town's my local team. I literally have no interest in it. I don't care how England do in the World Cup. I mean, he was saying this privately to me. No, I don't know what he would have said in a TV broadcast, but I think he would have been honest enough to say, I just got no interest in it. I mean, good, if you have, I'm not anti it, but I'm just not going to pretend to get involved. I find it odious when people who aren't interested in football pretend to be.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about the fair weather fans who, by and large, in comparison with history, have had it good for England. I can still remember us getting 1 point under Roy Hodgson against Costa Rica, the agony of 1982. Just remember not qualifying in 1978. Don't we want our politicians just to say, look, it's not part of my day job?
I think that politicians falsely claiming to be interested in football and then getting caught out, as David Cameron was, if you remember, is much more damaging than it is beneficial to be genuinely interested in football and to share a bit of genuine football knowledge. So I think that there's a downside risk for politicians when it comes to these international tournaments in particular, but not that much of an upside gain.
The other thing we've been exploring a bit, Toby, and I haven't made my mind up about this, but you know me well enough that ignorance is no barrier to me expressing an opinion. So before the World Cup started, I was asked onto the Radio 4 show, The Moral Maze, about politics, morality, corruption in football. whether the gloss had already been taken off the World Cup because a referee had been banned. Obviously, at that stage, we didn't know how events would unfold since. What's your basic view of not politicians saying things and putting out on social media, come on, England, or I'm so proud of the boys, or whatever, but actually literally interfering in politics? This extraordinary rescinding of the red card penalty for the American player, all sorts of, referees leaning one way or the other. Can you get politics out of sport? I mean, I don't mind so much, even though I agree with you, it looks fake if somebody who's not really interested in football pretends on social media to take a great interest in it. But I am getting extremely worried if the President of the United States can get a suspension attached to a red card overturned. This is absolute madness, isn't it?
It is crazy. And of course, it risks undermining the integrity of the sport and people taking it less seriously, and that being extremely damaging. People think, the rules can be bent by the political will of senior politicians. There was also a rumour that Sir Keir Starmer intervened when FIFA momentarily brought forward the England-Mexico match. So instead of being played at, 1 a.m., I think it was scheduled for at that time, it was going to be played at 7 p.m. our time. I think the FA were unhappy about that because it gave the England squad less time to acclimatise to the altitude. So apparently, has it anyway, Sir Keir called up the president of FIFA to say, no, you've got to stick to the original plan. And then FIFA did a reverse ferret. That's sort of more forgivable, isn't it? Because that was a kind of last minute change that it was reasonable to object to. The red card was not a reasonable thing for Trump to have objected to. But in an ideal world, you wouldn't have politicians intervening at all in the decisions of officials.
Hang on then a second, Toby. You've got kind of libertarian leanings a bit like I do. The thing is, even if you say football can't change the world, France winning their first World Cup in 1998 didn't suddenly lead to multiracial harmony. There are some very practical, prosaic matters about, for example, are you going to extend licensing authority to sell alcohol during a match? And obviously, when we got this middle of the night game against Mexico, they suddenly shows they can rush through legislation to do things if they want to fix problems. Suddenly said, okay, pubs can open until 5 a.m. But therefore, if the UK government has an interest in alcohol licensing, which obviously it does, they're in charge of alcohol licensing, it's nearly impossible for them not to intervene in scheduling matters about football, right? Because it kicks straight into the alcohol licensing rules. So here's my conspiracy theory, no evidence to back it up, that Starmer might have been concerned that if the game had started against Mexico at 7 p.m. and finished at 9 p.m. and pubs still had an alcohol license till 5 a.m, that huge amounts of alcohol would be consumed for a full 8-hour victory party or whatever it is after the match. So on occasion, matters like football scheduling or whatever do impact on the day-to-day rules and laws that we need to abide by. So how can you keep them out of it? The Prime Minister has a natural interest in that.
Yes. I mean, I think, I think him lobbying is probably acceptable. And I think where I think politics should be kept out of football is when it comes to the FA and FIFA's seemingly arbitrary selection about what flags, banners, insignia it's acceptable for players to wear, T-shirts, and what it isn't. I didn't like the fact that footballers, including England footballers, took the knee right up until, I think, the most recent tournament. And during the peak of the Black Lives Matter imbroglio, wore BLM insignia on their armbands. And I think that even extends to wearing rainbow laces and the Rainbow Laces campaign. I mean, either you keep politics out of football altogether, or you just don't discriminate about what banners, what causes footballers can take up. To do it selectively and to claim somehow that things like the Rainbow Laces campaign, BLM, are beyond politics, I think is naive and hard to justify. One particular, the Free Speech Union took up one case in which a fan was suspended as a season ticket holder and banned from a ground. This was a championship club because he booed the players taking the knee before a game, and he was identified by CCTV. And we took up his cause. We said, if it's acceptable for the players to express their political allegiance to a particular cause, then why isn't it acceptable for fans, particularly paying season ticket holders to express their views about the same cause. Why should the players be allowed to do it, but not the fans? And we won that argument, and he was allowed back into the ground.
Look, we're going to be back to the bread and butter of football before long, back to club football. Southampton have lost their bid for Premier League promotion through a regulatory tribunal rather than on the field of play, which still grates with me. I'm going to have a chip on my shoulder all season about that one, especially if we don't get promoted. Do you think after a successful World Cup we're going to see an uplift in general interest in the game next season, or is football now about as big as it can get, or are you expecting yet more people through the gates of Loftus Road this season, Toby?
Well, Loftus Road is quite a small ground, Mark. It only can only squeeze in about 18 and a half. Quite often in the last season, we sold out. But it's possible that if England, because of England's performance in this tournament, it will increase attendance at football games. I hope it does. I've written this week in The Spectator, Mark, about this slight resentment that proper club football fans like us feel towards England fans. I mean, it's sort of, it's often unspoken because it seems to be slightly kind of grumpy old manish to complain about the national hysteria. But I think there is this prejudice amongst, proper fans like us towards the Johnny-come-latelys who only get excited about England every couple of years. You kind of think, and there's this sort of this assumption, possibly false, that being a football supporter is a zero-sum commodity. And if you become too enthusiastic about England, that means you're less enthusiastic about your club's performance, and really that's where your true loyalty should lie.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of inverse snobbery, isn't there? That being a glamour boy, being a kind of a fair weather supporter who only gets excited about England isn't being a proper fan. It's a sign of being a bit of a plastic.
I think that's true of the television watching football community. You only watch television every 4 years or every 2 years if they watch the Euros. The actual people who follow England tend to be supporters of smaller clubs, right? Because if you're Arsenal or Chelsea or Man United, you're probably using your budget to go away to Champions League matches and all the rest of it. Whereas what I love seeing is all the St George's flags with the names of small clubs across it. Bristol Rovers, Accrington, Macclesfield, Tottenham Hotspur, small clubs like that are often written on the side of St George's flag. So I think that's true of the TV watching kind of community, but the actual travelling fans tend to be from the second, third, fourth division. It's been great to have you. It's been absolutely great to have you. Thanks for making the time. The World Cup's been great, but I'm going to be a football snob. I'm really looking forward to the championship season kicking off. Indeed, I can't even wait for Eastleigh versus Southampton on Saturday night. I will be there, so come along if you can make it. Toby Young, thanks very much for your time. Look forward to catching up soon. Good luck with QPR next season.
Cheers, Mark. Good luck with Southampton.
Wow, what a fantastic interview there with Lord Young himself. Well, we're nearly at the end of the show. Common Senses, that's the World Cup, and nearly done for one more day. And he expected to see Mark Littlewood next to me. Well, he ran off. He ran off with good purpose, actually. He ran off and found himself a bar. Are you there, Mark? He did. He's there. In the pub. What have you got there, Mark? Is that a Guinness?
Pint of Guinness, yeah. Going back to my Irish roots, Paul. I haven't got any Irish roots. I just like Guinness. But yeah, look, I found a football pub, and I had to get out of your underground bunker. That smell of Portsmouth fish, I could only put up with it for a minute or two, Paul. So I've had to get out here to refresh and neck a pint of Guinness or two. So so I run off down the pub, slightly football themed. We've still got a few games to go. So tomorrow we're obviously going to be previewing, we might say a bit about France-England, the proper final, but we should probably preview the other match as well. We're agreed, aren't we? Every Englishman is going to be a Spaniard for the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, you'll have to rescind all my yellow cards for this one. I'm saying Spain will reign, Argentina's on the plane.
I mean, it doesn't get any better, does it?
Come on.
I mean, it doesn't get any better. I mean, this is you can't even give on-field penalties for this sort of nonsense. It's got to go to a higher authority to deal with this. But do we think the Spanish will do them? I mean, we'll do a full preview. We'll do a full preview tomorrow. But I know we all want that to happen. But then the same applied last night. We all wanted England to win. Spain are the favourites, right? I think quite markedly. And everybody quite likes Spain, don't they? I'm not going to say they're everybody's second team. I guess Portugal don't like them, but my impression is everybody's quite fond of them. Argentina, absolute marmite. You love them or hate them.
Yeah.
Look, we, as Brits, we love Spain. Politically, Spain have got a bit of an iffy history. I urge our followers, listeners, and viewers to just have a little look, even just at the 20th century. Even now, today, I would say that they've got some politics that I don't agree with. But what a great place to go and have a few beers in the sun, and of course, anyone can beat Argentina after we lost them last night. I would be supporting them anyway. And by the way, they are a better team, seeded second. Argentina seeded first, but they are a better team, I believe, than Argentina. Yeah. Still, I'm not. This isn't me being bitter after the fact. I still think England could have quite easily have beaten Argentina last night had we got the tactics correct. We didn't get the tactics correct, and Argentina are still really just one or two men.
Yeah, it's all for Argentina, and although we couldn't take down for Argentina, I reckon the Spanish will be able to do it. They're there for the taking, the Archies. And look, only one team in history has ever held the World Cup, right? The reigning champions have only gone on to win it back to back once. That was Brazil in 1962, who won it in 1958. We get a new team winning it most times. So it's in the stars. It's going to be Spain. Good road, basically close but no cigar for England again. Yet again, as soon as we come up against one really good team, we're knocked out. I'm afraid that is our experience and our history in World Cups. I'm not saying Norway are bad. I'm not saying Mexico are bad. But, as soon as we come up against a really, really big team, we just never seem to clear that hurdle. But look, I think I picked up that the Glindex was saying he doesn't think we can win in Euro 2028. Of course, we're hosting it. That does give us an edge. I'm counting no chickens, but this is still the best England team since 1966. We've got a chance. We'll be back tomorrow, probably all cheering on the Spanish. And then just to let folk know, our wrap-up show will be Monday. We're not just going to leave you hanging there. We're going to have to chew through everything that happened, not just in the Spain-Argentina final, not just in the third, fourth place playoffs, this mad bronze game, but also we'll take a whole look back at the highs and the lows of the tournament. I think the last 7 or 8 minutes last night was my low, but there have been plenty of highs too. Don't get too depressed. And you can also expect from me a full match report of the Spitfires versus the Saints. The thing that Paul Cox ridiculously suggests is the bronze match in Hampshire.